Hello, and thank you for watching this recording of the Ohio Virtual Tax Academy. The following presentation was delivered and recorded on January 15th, 2025, and all information it contains is accurate as of that date. You will notice that in this presentation there are some references to continuing education credits. Please note that continuing education credits were available only to those who attended the live event at which this presentation was delivered. Thank you and enjoy.
Hello, and thank you for attending the January 2025 Ohio Virtual Tax Academy. My name is Patricia Harris, and I'm the Tax Commissioner for the state of Ohio. At the Ohio Department of Taxation, our mission is to provide education, outreach, and exceptional service to Ohioans. The goal of the OVTA is to help you understand Ohio's tax law, your tax responsibilities, and to provide resources you need to manage your taxes. Whether you are a tax practitioner, a small business owner, or simply looking to expand your knowledge of Ohio taxation, I hope today's presentation accomplishes all of this and more. Thank you again for joining us, and I hope you have a great day.
Thank you, Commissioner. I am now pleased to introduce our first presenters of the day. Coming from our Personal Income Tax Division, I will turn it over to Afton Townsend and Brittany Sutherland.
Thank you, Nick. Welcome and thank you for joining the Ohio Virtual Tax Academy. As Nick said, my name is Brittany Sutherland, my partner is Afton Townsend, and we're going to be covering the Ohio individual and school district income tax updates for 2024. We also have the legal disclaimer that Nick previously stated in our presentation as well, but we do have two contact numbers at the bottom. This is just to reinforce what Nick said, but also to provide you the number of the individual income tax division and the business tax division should you have any questions after this presentation. So now that we've heard from our sponsors, our agenda for today is discussing the 2024 legislative updates and form changes, the SD 100 updates. The school district form was transformed last year and has continued to be improved upon. New resources and eServices that make the filing experience better. Payments and refunds that are available to, as options to all Ohioans. The 2210 penalty is going to be a discussion since it has been a hot topic as of last filing season. And finally, the electing PTE add-backs will be our last topic. So I hope you brought your snorkel as we dive deeper into the presentation, and Afton is going to take it over from here.
Good morning, and as Brittany previously mentioned, my name is Afton, and we are going to get started today with the 2024 legislative updates that affect the Ohio IT 1040 for tax year 2024. The first update we are going to discuss is the Ohio Homebuyer Plus accounts. The Ohio Homebuyer Plus accounts are new accounts that are available to Ohio residents. The purpose of the account is to hold funds that are then used to pay the down payment and closing costs for the purchase of a home. It is important to note that there are a few additional stipulations placed on the use of these funds. Those stipulations are that the home must be purchased in Ohio, the home must become the primary residence of the account owner, and they must claim the owner-occupied property tax reduction. However, the home purchase does not have to be the taxpayer's first home. And lastly, Ohio financial institutions approved by the Ohio Treasurer can offer these Ohio Homebuyer Plus accounts, and these accounts pay at a premium interest rate. The next few updates we are going to discuss occur on the Ohio Schedule of Adjustments and relate to the implementation of the Homebuyer Plus accounts. First, we have a new addition to the adjusted gross income. The new addition falls on line 8 of the Ohio Schedule of Adjustments. This new addition is for ineligible withdrawals from an Ohio Homebuyer Plus account. According to Revised Code 5747.01A43, this revised code states that account owners must add any funds withdrawn from an Ohio Homebuyer Plus account owned by the taxpayer or their spouse, if filed jointly, that were not used for eligible expenses. That being said, eligible expenses include down payments and or closing costs for the purchase of the account owner's primary residence located in Ohio, account fees charged by the financial institution administering the account, or the transfer of funds from the taxpayer's Ohio Homebuyer Plus account to another Ohio Homebuyer Plus account at a different financial institution. One last thing to note is that the taxpayer must make these additions regardless of 1, who contributed the funds, and 2, if the Ohio deductions for contributions and interest were claimed. Next, we have a new deduction from the Ohio Adjusted Gross Income. This new deduction falls on line 24 of the Ohio Schedule of Adjustments. This new deduction is for amounts contributed to and interest earned on an Ohio Homebuyer Plus account. On this line, taxpayers can deduct amounts contributed to an account owned by the taxpayer, their spouse, their siblings, their children, which includes stepchildren, or their grandchildren. If the taxpayer's filing status is single or married filing separate, the deduction is limited to $5,000 per account per year. If the taxpayer's filing status is married filing jointly and both spouses made eligible contributions, the deduction is limited to $10,000 per account per year. It is important to note that only the person making the contribution is entitled to this deduction, meaning this deduction is for the contributor, not necessarily the account owner. An account owner may not deduct amounts contributed by another person, and the total deduction for all tax years cannot exceed $25,000 per contributor per account owned by a single account owner. So if we break this down a little bit, you can contribute $5,000 per year per account. So over 5 years, you get a $25,000 deduction for that one account. But we also know that you can contribute to more than one account. So if you do contribute to 2 or more accounts, you would get a $10,000 deduction for that second account for the tax year, with a total deduction over the 5 years equaling $50,000. Now, the last 2 points that we want to cover still pertain to the Ohio Homebuyer Plus account deduction. Previously, we had discussed contributions made by individuals, and now we will discuss 2 additional deductions that relate to the interest earned on the accounts and employer contributions made to these accounts. The first additional deduction is where account owners can deduct interest generated by the account that is owned by the taxpayer or their spouse if married filing jointly. To deduct interest generated by the account, the amount earned must be included in the taxpayer's federal adjusted gross income, or FAGI. The second additional deduction allows owners to deduct contributions made by an employer to an Ohio Homebuyer Plus account that is owned by the taxpayer or their spouse if married filing jointly. To deduct contributions made by an employer, the contribution amount or amounts must be included in the taxpayer's federal adjusted gross income. These deductions are reported on the same line 24 of the Ohio Schedule of Adjustments, as the other new deduction that we just discussed. The interest and employer contribution deductions are not subject to the yearly or lifetime limits. And lastly, all deductions claimed on line 24 of the Ohio Schedule of Adjustments are only available for 5 years after the account was opened. This 5-year period does not reset if the account is transferred to a different financial institution. Moving on from the Ohio Schedule of Adjustments, we are now going to discuss updates made to the Ohio Schedule of Credits. On the Ohio Schedule of Credits, we have 2 new credits available. The first new credit is for commercial vehicle operator training expenses. This credit is administered by the Ohio Department of Development and is based on employer expenses paid to train an employee to obtain a commercial driver's license or to operate a commercial motor vehicle. This credit is reported on line 22 of the Ohio Schedule of Credits and is a non-refundable credit with a 5-year carry-forward period. There are a few stipulations attached to this new credit, and they are as follows. 1, an employee's wages are not an eligible training expense, and 2, in order for the taxpayer to be eligible for this credit, they must have a credit certificate issued by the Ohio Department of Development. If the taxpayer qualifies for this credit, as previously mentioned, the taxpayer will be issued a certificate from the Ohio Department of Development. That certificate will either be issued to the taxpayer or to the business if the credit is based on the taxpayer's ownership of a pass-through entity. If the credit was issued directly to the taxpayer, a copy of their certificate must be attached to the return. If the credit is based on the taxpayer's ownership of a pass-through entity, the entity will hold that certificate. The taxpayer must include documents showing their portion of the credit in addition to a copy of the certificate. This information is needed to verify the amount of the credit and the tax year for which the credit was awarded. The second new credit is for the Film and Theater Capital Improvements Credit. This credit is also administered by the Ohio Department of Development and is for work on facilities and/or equipment in Ohio that is used for production and post-production of motion pictures and Broadway theatrical productions. This credit is reported on line 44 of the Ohio Schedule of Credits and is a refundable credit, meaning that the amount can be refunded to the extent that it exceeds the total Ohio tax liability. Now, there are a few stipulations attached to this new credit, and they are as follows. 1. The credit is 25% of eligible expenses up to $5 million. You cannot include expenses already used for the existing motion picture and Broadway theatrical production credit, and the taxpayer must have a credit certificate from the Ohio Department of Development. Again, if the taxpayer qualifies for this credit, the taxpayer will be issued a certificate from the Ohio Department of Development. That certificate will either be issued to the taxpayer or to the business if the credit is based on the taxpayer's ownership of a pass-through entity. If the credit was issued directly to the taxpayer, again, a copy of their certificate must be attached to the return. And if the credit is based on the taxpayer's ownership of a pass-through entity, again, the entity will hold that certificate, and the taxpayer must include documents showing their portion of the credit in addition to a copy of the certificate. This information is needed to verify the amount of the credit and the tax year for which the credit was awarded. And for both of the previously discussed credits, if no certificate is attached to the return, the taxpayer will be sent a letter requesting the documentation. Having to request the documentation will delay the processing of a taxpayer's return. And if no response is received, this credit may be denied. And a denial may result in a reduced refund or a tax due, so we highly recommend attaching the required documentation at the time of filing. Now, I'm going to go ahead and pass it back over to Brittany, and she's going to cover the 2024 tax brackets, exemptions, and SD 100 updates.
Thank you, Afton. So the 2024 tax brackets have been downsized from 2023 to 2024. There are now 3 tax brackets instead of the traditional or the 4 from last year. But the income and the that is earned between $0 and $26,050 remains taxed at 0%. Income earned between $26,000 and $51 and $100,000 is now taxed at 2.75%. And for income that is earned over $100,000, there is a decrease in the taxing rate from last year, and it is now taxed at 3.5%. The exemption amounts, there was no change from 2023 to 2024. So the personal exemption amount has remained the same. If your modified adjusted gross income is $40,000 or less, it is $2,400. If your modified adjusted gross income is $40,001 to $80,000, the personal dependent exemption amount is $2,150. And if your modified adjusted gross income is more than $80,000, your personal dependent exemption is $1,900. A reminder that this is per person claimed on the return, not per return. So if you have 5 people claimed on the return between filers and dependents, you would be claiming 5 exemptions. Now we have our first poll question. Just a reminder that you do not have to answer this correctly to earn credit. You just need to participate. And the question is, the Film and Theater Capital Improvement Credit is a non-refundable credit. True or false? I'll let you pause, think about it, mull it over a little bit. Again, participation is key. And the answer is false. It is a refundable credit. We will leave the poll question up as we continue through our presentation just for a little bit, so that way you can get all of your answers in and earn your participation trophies. Okay. Now that we have already taught you so much, OVTA, are you ready to go back to school with me? The next topic we're going to cover is the changes to the SD100. So last year, the SD100 had many, many updates, and this year improvements continued to be made. So we're going to talk about the changes to the schedule of school district residency specifically. The purpose of the schedule of school district residency is to account for you and your spouse and where you resided in 2024. If you and your spouse are both residents of the same school district, you simply have to make sure you check both the primary and spouse boxes when filling out this portion of the form. If you or your spouse were a non-resident of Ohio for any portion of the 2024 year, you will have to enter 9999 in the school district number box on this form. And you also may need more than one entry for the same period if you and your spouse's dates of residency don't match and you are filing jointly. But new for the 2024 tax year, there is now a new section to include days as resident and the residency factor to help divide the income earned in each school district if there is some question of how much income was earned in the district or districts if you lived in multiple. So, to help you calculate your days as resident and the residency factor, the department has very kindly provided a tool to help you with this. You can find it at tax.ohio.gov/school/SD residency. If you're filing electronically through our OVTA Tax eServices website, a third party, the software should calculate this for you, and you should not have to use this particular tool. But if you're filing by paper, this is crucial. This is the tool that you will use to calculate this. You will input the start and end date that you're resident in the school districts, and the tool will provide you with the days as resident and the residency factor. You will then carry these numbers over to the schedule of school district residency. And just a reminder that this calculator is only available for tax years 2024 and forward, 2023 and back. This is not applicable. So for taxpayers that were part-year residents or a resident of multiple school districts during the year, the residency factor can help you divide up your modified adjusted gross income. So regardless of the type of school district, which is traditional or earned, this factor applies to both. There will be a line 23 for traditional on the return and line 30 to 33 on the earned income tax return for taxpayers to state how much income was earned in the district or districts. So, here's an example of how using the schedule of school district residency would be filled out with this new residency factor and the days as resident. So I'm filing by paper, and I have gone to the previously displayed calculator and put in my information. I lived in school district 3301 from January 1st to March 9th, and the residency calculator provided me with my days as resident of 69. And the residency factor of 0.1885. I also lived in school district 2602 from March 10th to December 31st. Therefore, I would also need to calculate my days as resident and residency factor for this school district as well, which is shown in the example. Please keep in mind that your dates of residency need to account for the full year. So that means if you lived in multiple school districts during the year, you lived outside of Ohio, came back, any portion of that year, you will need multiple entries for this form. And if it's explained well on your W-2 or 1099 issued to you by your employer, that doesn't mean you have to use the residency factor to calculate the income received, but you are still required to fill out this field on these forms. And again, if there's some question of how much income was earned in the district or districts, the residency factor is the available tool to help. So thanks for joining me in school. I hope you had just as good as time. I hope you had just as good a time as I did. And now Afton is going to be speaking on new resources that the department has developed to make the filing process smoother. Afton?
Thank you, Brittany. And so now we are going to go ahead and move forward to cover a few new resources that are now available on the department's website. Now, historically, the department has published both tax brackets and tax tables in our instruction booklets. However, beginning with the tax year 2024 instructions, the department will no longer provide the tax tables. We will only provide the tax brackets as you see pictured here. Now, since those tax tables will no longer be published, the department has created a new online tool to help calculate tax. This new tool was developed to assist taxpayers in completing a paper form by hand. When filling out the required fields within the tax calculator, you will just need line 7 from the Ohio IT 1040, which is a taxable non-business income, and the tax year you are filing for. The calculation performed will provide the amount to be reported on line 8A of the Ohio IT 1040, which is the non-business income tax liability. That tax calculator is now live on our website and can be found at tax.ohio.gov/tax calculator. Now, as this slide shows, the department has taken many steps to make working with an examiner as convenient as possible. As a result, taxpayers and preparers now have the capability to schedule appointments to speak to a tax examiner. These visits can be scheduled by visiting our website at tax.ohio.gov/contact. When scheduling a visit, you have two options. The first option is an in-person visit at the department's Welcome Center, which is located here in Columbus. And the second option is receiving a phone call from a tax examiner. Now, one thing to keep in mind for an in-person visit, the visitor or visitors must present a photo ID, such as a current driver's license, state ID, military ID, or a passport. Now, while the in-person visits and phone calls have been available for a little while now, just recently we added a new option for getting assistance from a tax examiner. The department now has a live chat feature that is available through Pilot, which is our virtual assistance tool. That live chat feature is available during normal business hours of 8 a.m. to 5 p.m., Monday through Friday, excluding holidays. One important thing to note when using this live chat feature is that if you're going to ask taxpayer-specific questions, identity verification will be required. And if identity verification cannot be met, we will not be able to answer those taxpayer-specific questions. And lastly, taxpayers and preparers now have the option to request income statement transcripts that have Ohio withholding via OH Tax. To request these income transcripts, the taxpayer or preparer must be logged into their OH Tax account. Once logged in, you will navigate to the Additional Services section, and from there, you will select the hyperlink that says Request Wage Statement under the Account Transactions panel. When completing this request, you will need to provide the employer name, the last 4 of the Employer Federal Employer Identification Number, or FEIN, and then select the type of wage statement you are requesting. If you or the taxpayer do not have the information required to complete this request, you can request wage and income statements from the IRS first. And then once you have those IRS transcripts, you will have the information needed to complete this request. As seen on the screen here, this request will result in a letter containing the Ohio withholding information from the requested income statement or statements. It is important to remember that the information in this letter should not be used when completing the taxpayer's federal income tax return. This information should only be used to file the Ohio individual and/or school district income tax returns. Now I'm going to go ahead and pass it back over to Brittany for her to cover the OH Tax eServices.
Thank you, Afton. So now I'm going to prep you for talking about preparer access and OH Tax eServices. So last year, we launched OH Tax eServices accounts, and this was on September 5th, 2023. A feature that we wanted to highlight is that the eServices account is that preparers can sign up as a preparer account and request access to a taxpayer's account. There are multiple different paths to request information to a client's account. You can request access via a tax preparer's account or from the representative center shown here. The Representative Center is the most direct way to request this access. Once you click on the Representative Center link, you will click on the link to request access to client information. You will then be taken to the Preparer Request Access form. Once you complete and submit this form, an email will be sent to the client if they currently have an OH Tax eServices account. If they do not currently have an OH Tax eServices account, a letter will be mailed to them within 5 to 7 business days with a PIN on it. The PIN letter will be sent regardless of the email or paper mail. They both have the same information, just different ways of sending it out. So the client will then need to provide their PIN to you in order for you to gain access to their account. Once you have obtained the PIN from the client, you will go back to the Representative Center, click the Submit Access PIN hyperlink, and then you will be taken to enter the taxpayer PIN form. Once you complete the form by entering the taxpayer's last name and PIN, you will have access to your client's dashboard. I would like to note that previously this time frame to respond to this PIN letter was set to 60 days. It is now 120 days to be able to respond to the PIN letter. So once you have access to your client's dashboard, you do have the ability to manage this access. A list of your available clients can be viewed by clicking on the Select a Customer link. Once the screen is displayed, select the client you would like to work with. Once you select the client you wish to work with, you will see 2 access panels, which are Manage Client Access and Income Tax Access Management. In the next few slides, we'll discuss the actions available within each of the previously mentioned access panels. If for some reason you part with a client, you do have the option to cancel your access to their OH Tax eServices account. If you wish to cancel access to a specific client, you can use the Cancel Existing Access link under the Manage Client Access panel to complete this action. If you wish to reinstate access after it's been canceled, you will have to go through the client PIN process to regain access. If you work as part of a tax preparation firm, you can delegate access of a client's OH Tax eServices account. If you wish to delegate access to a specific client, you can use the Delegate Access link within the Income Tax Access Management panel. Once the Delegate Prepare Access screen is displayed, enter the EFIN and email address and then click the Next button. Then a list of clients will be displayed, and select the appropriate clients and click the Next button. A review screen will be displayed, and then you should be able to once the review screen has disappeared, the person you have delegated access to should be able to see all of the clients that you have given them. So now in your eServices account, whether you're a preparer or a taxpayer, you can file both original and amended returns for your Ohio tax and school district tax returns. Submit documents to accompany your return to your letter or notice sent or ID verification documentation. Request and/or print transcripts of returns on file for both the school district and Ohio, as well as request wage transcripts for the Ohio information, as Afton previously stated. You can view and make a variety of payments, which will be covered later on in the presentation. You can securely message a tax examiner about a problem, question, situation, and get a personalized message back. You can allow a tax examiner agent, while on the phone or live while on a phone call or live chat, the ability to see your screen so they can help you solve a problem, answer a question, or any of the other things that you may have about your eServices account. And finally, we have our digital assistant pilot to answer generic questions and help direct you to information when tax examiners are unavailable. Now, taxpayers may have something called limited access when they sign up initially for their OH Tax eServices account. With limited access, taxpayers can only file a return for the current year and can only make payments through the guest payment services. Therefore, please make sure that your clients register for an account before the last day or two of tax season, as we do not want this to happen to them. So, we have talked about all the things you can do with Preparer Access, but here are some limitations to what Preparer's Access allows you to do. So preparers cannot update a client's mailing address from the account, change the correspondence delivery option set up by the taxpayer, view the access PIN themselves, and then the preparer cannot edit the access. They can only cancel it.
We are now going to cover electronic payments and refunds. Through our website, tax.ohio.gov/pay, you are able to make Ohio individual income and school district income tax payments. The type of payments that can be made include account payments, which it is important to note that these are a logged-in function only, return payments, which can be for original returns or amended returns. You can make extension payments, estimated payments, and billing or assessment payments. And when making payments electronically, taxpayers have two options. You can either pay by electronic check or a credit card, which includes a debit card. Paying by electronic check allows the funds to be directly withdrawn from a checking or a savings account. Now, there is no fee for using this payment method, and generally, the payment will be withdrawn from the chosen account within 24 hours of the date chosen for the payment. Now, paying with a credit or a debit card is just as efficient as a paying by electronic check. However, there are a few small differences when using a card to make your payment. Credit card payments are handled by a credit service provider, and because of that service, that being held by an outside service, there is a convenience fee of 2.65% or $1, whichever is greater, associated with this payment type. And since a credit or debit card payment cannot be future dated, the credit card would be charged on the date that the payment is authorized. If you would like additional information regarding making payments, you can always visit our website, which is again tax.ohio.gov/pay. Now, the department highly recommends making electronic payments over mailing payments because, one, once authorized, a confirmation number is provided for all electronic payments. Two, electronic payments post to an account in a timelier manner. And three, any pre-scheduled or future dated electronic payments can be canceled as long as they are in a pending status. If you or your client choose that mailing a payment is the best option for you over making an electronic payment, please just keep in mind that you must include an Ohio Universal Payment Coupon, or the OUPC, when mailing a payment. And this coupon is available at our website, tax.ohio.gov/forms. And while we're on the topic of electronic options, we would like to take a moment to highlight the benefits of choosing to have a refund issued via direct deposit over requesting a paper check. So if you request a refund to be direct deposited, it is faster than requesting a paper check. Once that deposit has been approved, the funds are generally issued in approximately 15 business days. And if you have early deposit with your bank, it is a possibility that you may receive those funds sooner. Also, if you requesting a refund to be direct deposited is a safer option than requesting a paper check. Since direct deposit allows funds to be issued electronically, you do not have to worry about the refund check being lost or intercepted in the mail. And finally, when you request a refund to be issued via direct deposit, you have the option to deposit the entire amount of your refund into 4 different types of accounts: a checking account, a savings account, an IRA account, or an Ohio 529 savings account. But one thing I do want to point out is that the IRA option and the Ohio 529 option are only available for refunds that are being issued off of the IT 1040. This is not an option for refunds being issued off of an SD 100 form. Also, please keep in mind that direct deposit can only be requested when filing electronically. And before submitting a return, when requesting a direct deposit, it is really important to double or even triple check that the routing and account number is correct, because once the return is submitted, that bank information cannot be changed. Now, if you or your client decides that issuing a refund via a paper check is the better option for your situation, please make sure that the address on the return is the most current address, as the check will be mailed to the address on the return. And please keep in mind that if you request a paper check, they must be cashed within 90 days. Otherwise, they will void and will have to be reissued, which can be kind of a lengthy process. Now, moving on to our next topic, we are going to cover the 2210 underpayment of estimated tax penalty. Now, generally, if a taxpayer is a wage earner or has Ohio withholding, they will not owe an interest penalty. However, if they have non-wage income or no Ohio withholding and do not make estimated payments, they may be subject to an interest penalty for underpayment of estimated taxes. Revised Code 5747.09 D and E states that an interest penalty will be added to any underpayment of estimated taxes unless one of the following is true. So 1, your tax liability minus any employer withholding for the current year is $500 or less. 2, your taxes paid are at least 90% of your tax liability for the current year. Or 3, your taxes paid are at least 100% of your tax liability for the previous year, as shown on your timely filed previous year's return. And I do want to point out that timely filed is an important part of the third safe harbor. If that prior year return was not filed timely, then your taxpayer does not qualify for that third safe harbor. So to summarize, you can avoid the penalty if you owe $500 or less after subtracting what your employer already took out, you paid at least 90% of what you owe for this year, or you paid at least 100% of what you owed last year if you filed last year's return by the due date. Now, if the penalty is owed, the department provides a fill-in worksheet to assist in the calculation of the interest penalty. To show everyone how to fill out this worksheet, we are going to go over an example. In this example, Joe taxpayer's current year IT 1040 reflects a total Ohio tax liability, which is the IT 1040 line 10 minus line 16 of $2,000. He has $1,000 in employer withholding on his W-2. He does not have a credit carry forward or any refundable credits. He did not make any estimated payments for the tax year. And last year, Joe's total Ohio withholding was $1,500. So to calculate the interest penalty, the taxpayer first needs to determine what their quarterly required installment is. The quarterly required installment is 1/4, or 25%, of either 90% of the current year's total Ohio tax liability or 100% of their prior year's total Ohio tax liability. So to calculate the basis of the quarterly required installment, we are going to start with Part 1 of the ITSD 2210 worksheet. So on Part 1, line 1 is the 2024 Ohio income taxes paid, and that is any timely 2024 estimated payments plus withholding plus any 2023 credit carry forward if there are any. And for this example, the amount we're going to put on line 1 is $1,000. For line 2, we are looking for the 2024 Ohio income tax liability, which is total tax minus total credits. And for this example, the amount on that line is going to be $2,000. For line 3, we are looking for the 2023 Ohio income tax liability, which again is total tax minus total credits. And for this example, the amount on line 3 is going to be $1,500. And then for line 4, we will multiply line 2 by 90%, and we get $1,800 for that line 4 amount. Next, we are going to answer the questions on line 5 through 8. So for line 5, we want to know if line 1 is greater than or equal to line 4. If we were to answer yes on that question, we would stop and no interest penalty would be charged. However, for this example, the answer is no, so we will continue down to line 6. Line 6 says, did you file a timely 2023 income tax return? If yes, continue to line 7. The answer is yes for this example, so we will go ahead and move down. Line 7 says, is line 1 greater than or equal to line 3? If we answer yes to that question, we would stop and no interest penalty would be charged. However, for this example, the answer is no, so we will move on to line 8. And that says, is line 2 less than withholding $500 or less? Again, if we answered yes to this question, we would go ahead and stop and there would be no interest penalty charged. But for this example, we are going to answer no, so we will move on to line 9. And line 9 says, if you answered less on line 6, enter the lesser of line 3 or line 4. If you answered no, enter the amount from line 4. And so for line 9, we are going to enter $1,500, which is the lesser of line 3 or line 4. So once we determine the basis of the quarterly required installment, we are going to move on to part 2 of the ITSD 2210 worksheet. So for part 2, we start with line number 10, and that says to multiply the amount on line 9 by the percentage indicated at the top of each of the columns pictured here. And so we are going to take $1,500 and we are going to multiply by the percentages to where we get $375, $750, $1,125, and $1,500 for each of those columns. Moving on to line 11, we are going to multiply the total tax withheld from compensation by the percentage indicated at the top of each column. And for line 11, we're going to use that $1,000 amount and multiply that by each of the percentages. So we get $250, $500, $750, and $1,000 for each of those columns. Now for line 12, they're asking for the total estimated tax paid by the date shown at the top of each column. In this example, we did not have any estimated tax payments or credit carry forwards, so we are going to put 0 across all lines there. Moving on to line 13, we are just going to add line 11 and 12. Since line 12 is 0 for all of the columns, we will just carry line 11 down to line 13, which is $250, $500, $750, and $1,000. Now for line 14, this is the underpayment subject to interest penalty, which is going to be line 10 minus line 13. And on this line, you will see that each quarterly required installment is reduced by any timely payments made within each quarter. And then the balance is subject to the balance is then subject to the interest from the payment's due date until the later of when the installment is paid or the return is due. And so for line 14, we are going to take line 10 minus line 13, and that gives us $125, $250, $375, and $500. We are then going to skip line 15 because those are just the rates for the calendar year filers, and we are going to move on to line 16, where we multiply line 14 by line 15. And for all of the columns there, we get $2, $5, $10, and $10. And then line 17 is going to be the total amount calculated from each quarter, which was on line 16, that is then added together, and that result is the taxpayer's interest penalty for underpaying their current tax year liability. So this example, line 17 is $27, and so that would be Joe taxpayer's interest penalty for the year. Now, there are some special exceptions regarding Ohio estimated payments and the interest penalty, and these exceptions apply to farmers, fishermen, and active duty service members. So for farmers and fishermen, if their gross income is at least 2/3 from farming or fishing, and they use the same method for filing their federal and their Ohio income tax returns, different rules apply to the underpayment of estimated taxes. So they may be exempt from paying the interest penalty if they do one of the following, and that is pay estimated taxes as described under Revised Code 5747.09. They pay 100% of the tax and filed their annual tax return on or before the first day of the third month following the close of their taxable year, which for most taxpayers would be March 1st, or they pay 100% of the tax on or before January 15th following the close of their taxable year, and they file their annual tax return by April 15th. One thing we would like to note here is that as of November 28th of 2024, the exceptions for farmers and fishermen under Ohio Admin Code 5703-7-04 apply to both Ohio income and school district income tax accounts. Before that November date, these exceptions only applied to the Ohio income tax return. So again, that has been updated to include both the Ohio income tax and the school district income tax accounts. Now, moving on, for active duty service members, some may qualify for an extension to file and pay their income taxes. And if this extension is granted, they will not owe the interest penalty. If you would like additional information regarding the 2210 underpayment of estimated tax penalty, you can visit the FAQs on our website at tax.ohio.gov/2210. Now I'm going to go ahead and pass it back over to Brittany so she can cover the electing pass-through entities.
When an entity elects to file the IT 4738, they are considered an electing pass-through entity, or PTE. The entity is allowed to deduct Ohio taxes paid on their federal entity return. This reduces the PTE income that flows through to the individual. Therefore, the individual must add back their proportionate share of taxes that were deducted on the entity's federal return. This began in 2022. The amount is reported on line 2 of the Ohio Schedule of Adjustments. Similarly, beginning in tax year 2023, investors in a PTE that is subject to the PTE SALT cap tax imposed by another state or the District of Columbia should add back their proportionate share of the tax on line 3 of the Schedule of Adjustments. In both cases, beginning in tax year 2023, if the income on which the tax is based qualifies as business income under Ohio law, the tax added back also qualifies as business income and should be reported on the Ohio Schedule of Business Income. An add back on line 2 of the Ohio Schedule of Adjustments correlates with line 7 on the Ohio Schedule of Business Income. And an add back on line 3 of the Ohio Schedule of Adjustments correlates with line 8 on the Ohio Schedule of Business Income. When filling out line 8, 7, and or 8 of the Ohio Schedule of Business Income, you will enter any portion of line 2 and or line 3 on the Ohio Schedule of Adjustments that represents your proportionate share of the taxes paid by the EPTE that filed the Ohio IT 4738. When looking at the Ohio K-1, which is issued to the taxpayer by the entity, the amount of the required add-back is reported on line 3A, 3B, 4A, and or 4B, depending on where the entity tax was paid. If the entity tax was paid to Ohio on the IT 4738, the taxpayer should expect an amount on line 3A and or 4A. If the entity tax was paid to another state or the District of Columbia, the taxpayer should expect an amount on line 3B and or 4B. We are aware that the entity does not always fill out the Ohio K-1 correctly. For example, we have seen several instances where the add-back amounts reported on the Ohio K-1 were incorrectly reported. Anytime this happens, we are more than happy to work with tax preparers and or the taxpayers to resolve these types of situations. So now I have more questions for you, as if you have not heard me ask you enough questions today. But we have a couple of PTE examples. So first, the taxpayer files their 2024 IT 1040 reporting a $10,000 PTE credit. $4,000 is from PTE A, $2,500 is from PTE B, and $3,500 is from PTE C. The PTE credits are based on the following: PTE-A filed the IT 4708. PTE-B filed the IT 4738 and submitted its tax and payment on 4/1/2025. PTE-C submitted an estimated tax payment on 12/20/2024, which paid the tax liability in full and filed the IT 4738 on 3/15/2025. Does the taxpayer have an add-back requirement based on this example? It does. Yes, PTE-A did not file the IT 4738, so the $4,000 credit is not going to be added back. PTE-B filed the IT 4738 but did not pay the tax until 2025. Thus, there is no add-back required for this PTE credit. And PTE-C filed the IT 4738 and paid the tax in 2024. Therefore, the taxpayer must report the $3,500 credit as an add-back on the schedule of adjustments. Okay, our next example. So exciting. The taxpayer files their 2024 IT 1040 reporting a $5,000 PTE credit from PTE-D. PTE-D paid $8,000 in estimated taxes in 2024. PTE-D remitted the remaining $2,000 tax liability on 4/15/2025 when the IT 40 and it filed the IT 4738. PTE-D claimed $8,000 of Ohio PTE taxes paid as a deduction on the 2024 federal return. And another piece to add into this is the taxpayer is a 50% owner of PTE-D. Now, I bet you don't know what the next question is. Does the taxpayer have had an add-back requirement based on this example? Yes, they do. Woo! The taxpayer is required to report the $4,000 add-back on their IT 1040. This is the $8,000 federal deduction multiplied by 50% ownership. And our final example of the day, that's so saddening, is the taxpayer files their 2024 IT 1040 reporting a $7,000 PTE credit from PTE-F. If PTE-F paid $16,000 in estimated taxes in 2024. PTE-F also filed the IT 4738 on 4/15/2025, reflecting a $14,000 tax liability, requesting the $2,000 overpayment to be refunded. PTE-F also claimed $16,000 of Ohio PTE taxes paid as a deduction on their 2024 federal tax return. And again, this taxpayer is a 50% owner of PTE-F. And finally, does the taxpayer have an add-back requirement based on this example? Yes, they do. All of the answers were yes. I hope you got them correct. The taxpayer is required to report the $8,000 add-back on their IT 1040. This is the $16,000 federal deduction multiplied by their 50% ownership. So this is the last you've heard of me. I'm going to pass it over to Afton to wrap up our presentation, maybe put a bow on it, and send you on your way.
Thank you, Brittany. Now, if you have any questions and need to contact the department, you can reach our Taxpayer Assistance Division by calling 1-800-282-1780. Or if you would like to speak to someone on our tax practitioner line, you can call 855-728-1055. Or if you would rather contact us via email, you can visit our website at tax.ohio.gov/contact. And we have our address up there on the screen if you did want to come into our Welcome Center, which again is located in Columbus. And if you haven't already, we ask that you follow us on social media. We have LinkedIn, X, Facebook, and YouTube. That will conclude our presentation today. We thank you very much for your time.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Jonathan Alsway. I'm a tax program executive here with the department, and I'm currently serving as our business sponsor, overseeing the implementation of our OH Tax system, which includes our OH Tax eServices, As Nick mentioned, Andrew Bick is also part of the presentation today. He actually recorded a demonstration. He's our business analyst overseeing the eServices team. So a lot of great information that we have for you today. Excited to share. But first, I'm going to kind of intro you into what OH Tax eServices is. And then we'll get into the demonstration. So as you've seen, pretty standard for us. This information is up to date as of today. Things change, systems change. So please stay current with us and make sure you have the most accurate information. But we have, again, great information that's going to be useful for you when you're here and using OH Tax eServices. So here's your first look. Again, if you haven't seen it before, this is a screenshot that shows our homepage. You're greeted by our state bird, the cardinal. And just to the right of that, you'll see that blue box where you would log into the system using your OH ID. So this is important. This is a new application that we added into OH ID. So that way, if you've established your account with the Ohio Business Gateway, with the BMV, with BWC, the number of applications that are out there, those same login credentials also are used to get into OH Tax eServices. Right below that, you'll see a tile for our self-help. I just want to point that out. Again, we hope this system is very intuitive and very useful to you, but the team did a great job developing video tutorials as well as PDF tutorials to help you through that transition and get you comfortable with the system. So certainly encourage you to check those out. So as I mentioned, change is difficult. Why are we doing this? Why are we telling you to come into a new system? We've relied on the Ohio Business Gateway for a number of years, had a great partnership and continue to have a great partnership with them. But we want to and are creating a system that is tax focused for our taxpayers in an effort to make that a more user-eccentric and better experience by providing information that you didn't have before. Right when you log in, you're able to get a snapshot of where you stand, if you have a balance due, if a return is owed, if there's a credit on your account, what notices you or your client have received, all at your fingertips once you log into the system here. So a big objective is providing that not just for the taxes that have historically been electronic focused, but across the board for all of our taxpayers. Secondly, we want to modernize and stay current and provide those modern type of efficiencies and consolidate our systems. With our second release here, we had 17 different legacy applications that we were using to administer these taxes, and now we're able to roll those into one system. And last and certainly not least, we have to continue to stay up to date and provide the latest and greatest security to make sure all that sensitive information that we're dealing with remains secure. Here's a quick look at some of the features that we think you'll be excited about. Andy's going to show a lot of these in the demonstration. But again, as I mentioned, that taxpayer dashboard, similar to a banking-like experience where right on that homepage, you're able to see where you stand with the department and within a click or two, launch your returns, your payments, or your e-correspondence. Again, I think this is a great feature for both our taxpayers and the practitioner community. If you have access to your client's account, you will receive an email anytime a notice is generated for them, and you're able to view and respond to those notices right in the same spot there through our eServices application. We also have some enhanced features for our internal staff to be able to see where you are and better assist you if you do have to call in or chat with us and get some assistance there. So as I mentioned, this is our second release. We went live just over a month ago here, and that included our largest business taxes, our sales and use tax, our employer withholding and school district withholding, as well as some excise taxes, again, that didn't always have an electronic filing option available to them before. So excited for these taxes. It's a very busy time, and we understand that. December went well. January is even busier for our sales and use tax semi-annual filers and our withholding quarterly and annual reconciliations coming up here. But again, really proud of what the team is able to accomplish and where we're at today. We're on standby to continue to answer questions and help you through that. We do have an MFA requirement as well. So I just want to make sure you do get in sooner rather than later and make sure you have your account established and are able to get your filings in. Additionally, just want to make note that we went live with our first release back in Labor Day of 2023, and that included our individual and school district income taxes. And so this is the first time we've been able to provide a portal that will allow you to handle your individual clients as well as your business clients all in the same spot there. As I mentioned, so we're just over a year from the start of release 2 till go live in December of this year. A tremendous effort from the team to get us to this point. It was a very fast pace, a lot of information, a lot of data that we had to bring over. The team prepared back last December. We went into our definition phase in January, testing in the middle of the year. We actually had some CPAs participate in some testing there in early fall, all in preparation for our go live in December. And the other point I would like to make on this slide is that conversion arrow there at the bottom. That is the process of moving the old data from the legacy system into the new system. That's can be a problematic process for a lot of projects. We are able to start that at the beginning of the definition phase and carry through, allowing us to complete 14 different mock conversions. And so really prepared ourselves to bring that data in. And some of those highlights from conversions, we created just under 600,000 eServices accounts or web logons using the data from the Ohio Business Gateway. So that way, whatever you've already established with your clients there was carried forward into the new system. We created just over 767,000 different taxpayers in the system. That was made up of over 86 million records, and we carried forward over 6 billion in financials. So some stats that we have to date. So as I mentioned, we're very pleased with where we are at this point. We've processed over 227,000 sales tax returns, over 176,000 of those payments, 290,000 payments for our withholding side, and over 2.8 billion in financials. So again, very busy time of the year, we understand, but things seem to be trending very well there. What are some of the things that you should look out for with phase 2? Again, it's really the introduction to our business taxes. Here's some guest user functions we were not able to offer before. So you can now make payments, apply for sales tax refunds. You don't need to use the paper STAR anymore. That's available to you here directly on our homepage without logging in there. So Andy's going to show you a little bit more in this demonstration, but wanted to point out these features to you. How do you get access? I think that's maybe the most important question here. There's a couple different ways for our business clients, for your business taxpayers or taxpayers with business accounts. We still are tethered with the Ohio Business Gateway. So as I mentioned, those relationships that you already established were carried forward into the new system. If you have new clients coming on board, you'll need to first establish that relationship on the Ohio Business Gateway. And then depending on the role that you select, will determine the next steps that you need to take. If you're a filing administrator, you're done. Once you come over to OVTA Tax eServices, you'll have all the access you need for their accounts. If you are a filer or non-filer, there is one additional step to get approved for that access. Your individual clients, there's no tethering to the Ohio Business Gateway. You'll do everything within the OVTA Tax eServices, request access. A PIN will be generated which they can give to you in real time if they have an account. If they don't have an account, we'll mail a letter to them with that ID number. And lastly, before we really jump into the demo, want to let you know we're not done. We're continuing on to our third phase. So we actually have 5 phases planned. Our third release is just now beginning, where we're just launching the definition phase here. We have 5 taxes included in this release, kind of anchored by our pass-through entity, fiduciary income tax, and our IFTA, and a few other excise taxes, again, that haven't had the eServices application ability before that we're excited to offer. And that's planned for November of this year. So please stay tuned and be on the lookout for more information regarding our third release. And without further ado, a few things that Andy's going to go through is from logging in and going through actually viewing your clients, getting over from the gateway. Please continue to put your questions in the chat. We'll have people there to answer those real time. And I hope you enjoy the demo. Thank you.
And welcome everyone to the OVTA eServices demonstration portion of our OVTA. We were debating about what we were going to do for our eServices portion, and I'm sure you all love the PowerPoints that we've been going through, but we decided that we would try to mix it up a little bit and get away from the PowerPoints and actually show you everything, how it looks on eServices itself through the web browser. So for any of those of you who really, really like the PowerPoints, I'm sorry, but we're hoping that a majority of you will enjoy the actual scene as things are on the system a little bit more. And frankly, I think it'll be a little bit more fun and enjoyable for everyone. So that's what we decided to do for this. But before we actually get started on how everything looks on eServices, we do have a few disclaimers and housekeeping items to go through. First off, what we have to say is this is a test region. So that means everything that you are going to see is going to be test example data. So the company names, any balances, letters, returns, etc. All of that is made up, and frankly, as you see the company names, it'll probably be pretty obvious that it's made up. But, so what that means, if you are with a CPA firm or just your own software, if you're worried about displaying any federal tax information, confidential information, worry that your system isn't secured, you do not need to worry about that. Everything that you will be displaying is free for public access, free for the public to see, doesn't need any security requirements, doesn't need any disclosure, etc. It is all 100% good for you to look at. Second thing is, I know you've heard it before, but I'm going to reiterate it again. If you have any questions along through the demo, unfortunately, it's not something that we're going to be able to stop and answer your question and re-show you anything. However, we do have several people standing by that will be able to assist you and answer your questions. So put your questions in chat. We will be able to answer them. And hopefully at the end of this, Jonathan will be able to wrap up any multiple questions, or if we have any hot topic buttons or issues, he'll be able to answer those following our demonstration today. And with that, that is everything that we have for our housekeeping items. So let's go ahead and jump on into it. What we are looking at right now should be fairly typical and something you've seen before. This is our Ohio Business Gateway dashboard page. So again, you guys have seen most of this before, but the main thing that I want to point out here is in the middle of our page, we see a new service area and a new transaction type, which is named the Ohio Department of Taxation and OVTA Tax eServices here on the middle of the page. This is the new way that you are actually going to be able to navigate and access OVTA Tax eServices. So that means OBG is still going to be a thing. We are not getting rid of OBG. The Ohio Department of Taxation is still partnered with the Ohio Business Gateway, and they will be able to hold everything for how you actually log into the system. As Jonathan briefly had mentioned with all the permissions, OBG keeps the company permissions. Just want to reiterate that. So before we actually click in and navigate over to OVTA Tax eServices, I do want to mention something that isn't here on OBG anymore. That was before. Specifically, this example company that we have here right now, prior to our go live in December 9th, they actually had access to employer withholding, sales tax, and our natural gas / MCF tax. So what you'll see is those service areas and transactions are no longer here. You cannot access those on OVG anymore. They have been removed, and they have all been consolidated under this OH Tax eServices transaction, so you cannot access them. That being said, however, the history for any things that you did do prior to December 9th are still stored on OVG. You will be able to see any past filings or anything you did on OVG with the employer withholding, sales tax, or MCF. Those are still on OVG and will still be there, just you don't have the ability to click on it and file returns there. So another thing that I want to point out here, and this will be important when we do our redirect, you can see here, if we click our panel here on the top, this account that I've logged into, or this web logon I've logged into, has a total of 3 different companies that it is associated to with very descriptive and unique and creative names of example company, file only LLC, which you'll probably guess what we're going to be doing with that, and requesting access, which again, going to be requesting access with that one. But again, those are the 3 companies that we have access to. So I want to note that no matter which company you actually have selected on your dashboard, for example, right now we have example company selected, after you go over to OH Tax eServices, you are still going to have access to all 3 of those companies. You do not need to log into OH Tax eServices 3 separate times to do transactions with all 3. It is a one-stop shop. Click on this transaction from any of those 3 companies, and you will be navigated over to us. So, without further ado, let's actually log into OH Tax. So we'll click on our service area here. And after a brief load, we'll see we have a new splash page for OH Tax eServices. So we can see here, these are the taxes that we are currently handling out on OH Tax. So sales tax, employer withholding, PUP, PUIT, MCF, and adult use cannabis, as you guys have heard from some of the other demos. And after we read all of this, if we want to go over to our system for OH Tax, you can click on either this link right here in the first sentence, or in our second sentence, we also have a second link. Either one will work. They go to the same spot. We wanted to give you guys as many choices as possible to actually get navigated, trying to make it easy. So after you would click on that, what will happen is we will actually perform, we'll talk with OBG. So OH Tax and OBG will actually do a call, talk to each other, and find out which companies and what permission levels you have. Again, as Jonathan had mentioned earlier in our PowerPoint, we do that call, we do everything, and then you get logged into our system for whatever companies you have access to. Now, as I mentioned in our disclaimers ahead of time, I'm not actually going to click on this. We actually have everything pre-set up over here on a separate tab, just to make sure everything looks as good as possible for you. We don't want any malfunctions during our demo. So, for this company, once we log in, we can see those 3 companies that we had access to on OBG of example company, file only LLC, and requesting access. They still have access to those. And I do want to note, for any of you who are paying real close attention, I'm sure you all were, on OBG, this third company was actually called just requesting access, but on OH Tax, it's actually called Requesting Access Inc. That's because on our backend system, we actually have the incorporated associated with it. So even if your name doesn't match OBG for what it matches for OH Tax, we will actually still give you access to the company as long as the FANE matches. Just wanted to point that out there. But next up for what I want to show you guys is we'll do some basic navigation, what all OH Tax eServices has to offer for you. So off of our main page here, you can see have 3 different companies, however many you want, or however many you have access to would probably be the better way to say it, from OBG here. And let's go ahead and work with example company. We're going to be using that unsurprisingly as our example for most of these. And after we click on that, we get to our summary tab here. And we can see a list of all of the different account types that example company currently has. So we have a sales tax account, an adult use cannabis tax account, and a natural gas distribution account. We do have some new features here on OH Tax that you previously didn't have on OBG that we're excited to share. Main one of those being that you can see it here on our summary panel. We actually show you an account balance. So as opposed to OBG where you kind of had to guess and maybe use our notices, and it was kind of hard to figure out how much we actually thought you owed, right now, right out of the gate, first screen after you click on that company, we tell you exactly how much we think that you owe us for your overall account. No searching, no mess, no fuss. It's right there. In addition, some other things that we have on the summary page, things that we think you're going to be using a lot. So we show you what the status of your most recently filed return was. We also allow for you to make a payment. And there are some more options under our more ... unsurprisingly, which I wish we could show you. We will show you those a little bit later, but not right now. Our next tab that I want to go over here is our third tab listed right here, which says important notifications. Not sure how well it comes across with the screen share, but hopefully you guys can see there is a little red circle here with a 7 listed in it. That 7 means that there are 7 important notifications. So 7 things that the Ohio Department of Taxation thinks you should be notified about, and we think that we want to call your attention to it. So some of those things, as we can see here, if you have any access requests, unread notices, we think you need to pay some licenses, some returns are missing, things that we really want to call your attention for. We don't do this for everything, but anything that is possibly going to cause bills, assessments, cause problems on your end, we do list those under the important notifications. Again, we think it's important, so hopefully you do as well. Last tab that I want to call attention to will be our last tab here, which is additional services, which, as the name might suggest, has some additional services for things that aren't major on it. So I'm not going to go everything on this list. I wish we could go through all of these, but unfortunately, we only have an hour for this, so can't go through them all. But some things that I do want to highlight. Off of our first panel, we can see we have letters and notices, which will let you have an improvement for OBG, and we'll go through that now, is we actually let you see all letters and notices that we, the Ohio Department of Taxation, have sent to a client live and real time. So for any of you preparers who have had your clients come in before and say, you know, I swear I got something from the Ohio Department of Taxation, but, I forgot to bring my notice with me. I just don't have it. Well, you'll now be able to see it here. Or for any of you who are sole proprietors or anything, if you have ever received a notice from us and you just misplaced it, can't find it right now, but you know it was important, you just don't know the balance, well, you can log in and see that as well. So under our letter and notices tab here, we have a link that says View Letters and Notices. After you click on that, there they all are for you. So as of right now, for our example company, we have 4 different letters which are available. We have a copy of a certificate of registration for a VL that they filed for. We have 2 assessment notices, and we have 1 billing notice. And to view this notice, it is as easy as clicking on the name of the notice type right here. Has a brief pause time. We do it as fast as possible, but there is a second there. And then you will see an exact carbon copy of the notice that you would have received in the mail. I do want to point out here, with our launch of OH Tax, we did actually change our letter templates a little bit. So it's pretty similar to what you would have seen for our old system prior to December, but some things that we want to point out here. We do actually have a letter ID here in the top right. We list out what day your notice was sent, which account type it's for, the filing period, response date. But this template is what we are using for all of your notice types. So you will see that across all of them. But the important thing is we do actually use letter ID for our disclosure process. So if you would ever call the Ohio Department of Taxation, if you give us that letter ID located in the top right, and again, visible on eServices, we would actually be able to pass disclosure and be able to give you some information on your account. So that is a pretty important number. But beyond that, things to note here, we don't redact any information. So this is an assessment notice, so you can see things like the assessment number, the overall balance of your bill. Nothing is hidden again. 100% exactly what you received in the mail. We wanted to make this as quick and easy as possible, and we think this is a big feature that hopefully a lot of you find some use for. So if we go back out towards our additional services page, a couple of other things that we do want to point out to would be our second tab here, which is our messages tab. If you ever need to get a hold of us and it's either not during business hours or it's not really important, so you don't want to call and wait, you can go ahead and send us a message with the send a message link. This just sends an email to us. We'll be able to get it, respond to you as soon as possible. We do try to have a pretty fast turnaround for that, normally within a day or two. But after you respond to that, you'll be able to log back in and view any messages that we sent you, which will include emails that you send to us. Other things to note here, we do have some registration and account maintenance, which we will be getting into a second. We'll show you how to register accounts. Overall account transactions. This for right here, if you make any payments or you file any returns with us, you'll be able to see the status of those there. So you'll be able to make sure that you filed, make sure your payments, see if we processed your payments, and other things for other transactions like that as well. Other tabs, again, unfortunately, we just don't have time for. So, now that we've done our overall basic look for what eServices has to offer you, we are actually going to click on this OH Tax link here. This is actually a link which brings you out towards our initial landing page that you landed on. And we are actually going to show you how you request access to the system. Again, as you saw in the PowerPoints from what Jonathan was showing you, certain people will actually need to request access to accounts. So you won't actually get those right out of the gate. So we're going to show you how that's done now. So if we click on our third company here, which is called Requesting Access Inc., we're going to be, you guessed it, requesting access. So if we click on that, an important distinction here is you will see we no longer have that summary panel. We cannot see any accounts for this taxpayer. They do have accounts on the back end. However, we're just not showing them to them because we haven't gotten the appropriate access yet. So to get that access, under our Additional Services tab, if we go ahead and scroll down towards our Access Management tile, we'll see there's a link that says Request Access to a Business Account. Well, we want to request access to a business account, so that seems like a good spot to click on. After we click on that, we get up towards our first page of the access request. On here, you can see we have a drop down of all of the different tax types that are available to be requested on OH Tax, but we did actually combine a few. So for instance, if all you want is access to a vendor's license, we currently only have that for sales tax, so you would just need to click on sales tax, which will accompany vendor's licenses, transients, out-of-state sellers, and non-watercraft. Use tax requires both consumers use and direct pay, and etc. with the rest of the list. Something we do actually want to point out as a security feature that we have on this page is we don't actually dynamically change this page. So whether Requesting Access Inc. has access to only employer withholding, only sales tax, only use tax, regardless of what taxes we actually think that they have registered with us, we are always going to display all of these checkbox options. The reason being is because as of right now, this person doesn't have access to this account entirely. So if all we displayed on this page was the withholding account, because that's all that they have on the back end, then we would be giving them some more information, which we don't really think that they're entitled to at this point, because we don't know because it hasn't been approved. So just because it is on this page doesn't necessarily mean that the business has an employer withholding account. Again, security feature, didn't want to display too much to them. But let's say, just started with my new CPA firm, need access to this account, but all I'm going to be doing is employer withholding. We click on our employer withholding checkbox. Again, simple checkbox, nothing too fancy there. Scroll down to our bottom and move on towards our next button. And now we have to set our access level. Our drop-down options, as we can see here, there are 4 different access levels that we can request on OH Tax eServices. Hopefully they're a little self-explanatory towards you. I like to think they are, but file returns and make payments, and view only. So file returns and make payments allows you to do everything under the sun, like file returns and make payments, for instance. File returns, that will let you file returns with us, but unsurprisingly, you won't be able to make payments. So it'll let you file like a UST1, for instance, if you're trying to file a sales tax return. But even if that return has a balance due, we'll let you file the return, but we won't let you make the payment for it. The make a payment option is the exact opposite. So we're not going to let you file that UST1. However, if you want to come in and make a payment for it, you are more than welcome to. That's what that access level is. And view only, Unsurprisingly, we let you view the account, but we don't allow you to make any maintenance, any updates, or file or pay anything. So all you'll be able to do is see the status, check to see if a return is filed, and check the balance. Now, for our example here, I need to do everything under the sun. I'm a good person. I need it. So we'll go ahead and click on File Returns and Make Payments. And that is it. After we click on the Submit button here on the bottom, our access request is actually sent in. Everything is done from the requester's perspective. They do not need to do anything else. The next step that needs to happen is someone who is listed as a filing administrator on OBG. They're the person who has approval rights on OH Tax. One of those people will need to log in, and they will need to approve the request. So that seems like a pretty good segue. Let's show you how you would actually approve that request here. So just like with one of those cooking shows, when they do all the ingredients and prepare the cake, and then they just pull out a new one 30 minutes later, just pretending that it's done. That's what we're going to do right now. I actually pre-set up something for us to do an access approval. If you remember when we looked at example company before, we actually had a pending manage access request. So that's the one we're going to do. But just so you know, this is a different access request. That's why it's going to have more than just the employer withholding that I requested. So off of this, you can see a new employee, that was the person who is requesting access, has requested access to the account of example company. So let's go ahead and review that request, see what we want to do for it. And from this request, we have a couple of different things here. Again, up here at the top, this is just some background information, just in case you want to know who's requesting access and what they're requesting it for. So we can see new employee, the name of the person who's requesting access, has requested access to the following groups. The only group that they requested access to was sales tax, even though, to note, we do actually have an adult use cannabis tax and a natural gas account, but the only thing we need to do anything off of is the sales tax account. So let's see what they actually requested. We can see for our sales tax account here, we did request access. That's what this checkbox means here. We don't currently have any access, which means they currently can't see the sales tax account, but they requested file returns and make payments, so they requested the highest tier possible of access that they can get. So if we want to actually either approve or deny this request, we have two options. One, we could just click on sales tax here, or I kind of like clicking on this here at the top. We give a nice red circle with an exclamation point, kind of draws your eye. I always like clicking on that one personally. I like the exclamation point. It makes it a little easier. So after we click on that, you can see it's now highlighted. Now everything that we are doing is in regards to our sales tax account. And we give some details about what new employee has for our account. You can see our current access level is nothing. Again, just like we saw with our previous page. And now we're asking them, well, what access level do we really want to grant? Do we want to give them retain the current access level? Do we want to remove access to this account? Or do we want to grant access level? Well, for this particular example, since they don't have anything, these top two options are not really going to do anything because if we remove or retain, it's still going to be nothing. So let's go ahead and grant them. I reviewed them. I do think new employee is entitled to a new access level. We'll see here at the bottom, we pre-populate the access level that they request. However, we click our little arrow here to do the drop-down. We do actually give you the chance to change the access level that they requested. Even though new employee requested file returns and make payments, you as the approver, you still can just change this. So let's say I'm like, I'm only going to give you access to file returns. Change that drop-down. All you can do now is file returns. That is not a problem. Another good thing that we want to note is, although they only requested access to sales tax, if we click on our adult use cannabis tax here on the top, we can actually grant levels towards the adult use cannabis tax, even though the requester did not actually specifically request this. Reason being is we're trying to make it as easy as possible. Just because the requester forgot an account type, we don't want to make them redo the request and have you re-go in and do the approval. You don't like that. They don't like that. We thought it was unnecessary, so we gave you as the approval the ability to go ahead and give them access to make payments, even though they didn't request access to that. But let's go ahead and do that. So adult use cannabis, we're making payments. Sales tax, we're file only. We'll leave natural gas distribution as it is without any changes. Scroll down to our bottom and go next to go to our next page, which just a basic review page. On our review page, you'll be able to see we think you have 2 changes. You're going to be granting access to 2 different accounts. Assuming that's good, click our submit and click OK. And you are done as the approval. So all you have to do, go through that request from important notifications, a few clicks, and now new employee, our requester, now has access towards those accounts. All right, it's now time for a poll question. You don't need to get the answer correct in order to receive credit, just doing it to make sure everybody's still here. What actions are available in OH Tax eServices? A, viewing notices issued from ODT. B, responding to all notices. C, viewing past returns and payments. Or D, all of the above. Correct answer is D, all of the above. Now, once you get access to an account, what makes the most sense to do next? Well, what happens if you need to register a new account? So we can see here, example company has sales tax, adult use, and natural gas, but we're starting to expand. We're starting to hire some new employees, so now we're going to need to start doing employer withholding, for example company. So let's go ahead and register an employer withholding account for them. Go back to our additional services tab. Under our register and maintenance tile, we have a new link here, register a business tax account. Well, we want to register a business tax account, so we'll go ahead and click on that. And we'll see all of the different options that we let you register online on OH Tax currently. A couple of different sales tax and different VLs, an out-of-state seller, employer withholding, we let you other employer withholding gaming, and we do let you register for excise as well for either the public utility excise tax or the public utility personal property. To note on here, you will see from employer withholding, it is actually missing school district withholding. The reason being is because we actually kind of tie employer withholding and school district withholding registration as the same thing. So if you register for employer withholding, we are automatically granting you a school district withholding account as well. Doesn't necessarily mean you need to withhold anything for school district withholding, but we just give you that account as a placeholder right out of the gate. So we wanted to register employer withholding. Well, let's click on that. So all of our steps for what we're going to be doing for registration, we did break them down into small bite-sized chunks, trying to only get the information that we need. So for registration, we just need to know what day your Ohio payroll was. Let's go ahead and say that we were a little bit late, so we started back in 2024. What's your estimated remittance amount of the year? Well, we're a brand new company. I only have 1 employee that I'm starting to, file for. So let's go ahead and do $2,000 or less. And would you like to add a trade name or DBA name? Sure. We'll add a very creative name of test DBA name for our new DBA name. After we're done with this page, click on our next on the bottom. You'll start to see a habit for that. And we give you an option to update your address. To note, we are pulling the address from the current company address that we have. Since this company already exists in our system, we already have accounts registered for it. We're not going to make you waste your time of inputting 111 Testing Road, very creative name by the way, into it again. If this is the same mailing address that you have for your company, do you want to add a separate mailing address? No, it's the correct address. We're not going to make you re-input the address again. So, next page that we have here, this is something new that we are starting to capture with OH Tax, and that is we are starting to capture your NAICS or NAICS code. So I know what a lot of you are thinking, well, I don't know my NAICS code. Those are kind of, arbitrary numbers. Well, what you can do here, click on that search for NAICS code. What you do is we have a keyword search. There are 2 options for what you can do here. You can just type in, well, I do something along the lines of testing. If you just type in testing, we will actually give you results and show everything that has testing in the title. So testing electricity, testing laboratories. So you do not need to necessarily know your exact NAICS code in order to search. However, if you do happen to know the code, we do actually let you type in the code, and that search will work as well. So either, again, keyword or the actual code, either one will work. But to select it, click on our blue link here under code. As you can see, there's lots of cross-references here, but confirm that this is the correct code that you were looking for. If it is, we click yes, and bam, appears on our page. That's all we need to do there. After that's added, we click next, and we give you some contact information. To note, this is what you're going to see in production. We pre-populate this for you based on whatever is located as your contact information for your OHID. You can feel free to edit this if you want to, but again, we're trying to save you steps, so we pre-populate it based off of the information that we think you're going to be registering for. We're thinking who's ever doing the registration is going to be the contact. Seems like a safe assumption, but you can edit this if it's not. Our next page is something else that is brand new that we are doing for all of our registrations. We are now requiring responsible party information to be input before you can register an account. But to note, this page specifically, what we can see here on the top, this is existing responsible parties. We do not make you input the same responsible party every single time that you do a registration. We already think that test example CEO, again, you'll notice a trend with the creative names here, is actually who we think is the CEO and the responsible party for this. So we are pre-populating this and just assuming example CEO is actually the responsible party here. If it's not, we do let you change the start and end date. If for whatever reason that information is invalid, or maybe example CEO left last year, we do actually let you put in an end date. But if not, if this is still correct, don't need to make any changes off of it. Verify and click next, which we will give you an opportunity to make any new responsible parties that weren't on that previous page. We require at least one. So between the existing and this new responsible party page, you do have to do one. But as long as you have one, you click next and move on with the step. This page right here is our review page. This is something you'll see through all of our filing returns, registering, making payments. We want to give you all a chance to double check everything, make sure everything is correct before actually submitting it to us. Nothing is worse than when you send us in a return or send us in a registration and you just typoed your name or something was really basic and you accidentally made a mistake on it. It's just the worst to get it back. So we give you a chance to review everything one last time before you actually submit it. On here, I was lucky, no typos, everything looks good. Assuming everything looks good and we want to submit our web request, we click submit. And after a brief spin, everything is submitted. We can see we got a confirmation code. And we printed off a letter if you want to go see it for your registration. Otherwise, we click OK. Navigate back into Example Company, and we can see real time. You can now register and file for employer withholding. You do not need to wait. This is not a 24-hour process. Nothing needs to be reviewed by us. In and out, employer withholding, ready to go right now. So, now that your account is registered, what's next? Well, what's next is we should file a return. So, just to mix it up, I know some of you, not everybody does employer withholding. Some of you are probably sales tax only. So, we'll go ahead and file a sales tax return. And we have a couple of different options for how we can actually file a return. So what we can see here is we can either click View or Amend a Return. The reason this says View or Amend is because at the time of this recording, November was the most recent filing period. We can see we already have a return filed for November. So the only thing that we could do is amend November. The other way that, what happens if I want to file for a period that's not in November? What if I want to file for July? Well, View Returns and Period Balances. If you click this link under our account panel, what you'll be able to see is we give you a list of all periods that are currently open for you to file. So you can see we have September, October, November, and December for you to be able to file because this account actually started, so September was the first period. But we can see we filed for September. We have an estimated for October, meaning that they haven't filed yet. But that's the DQ. That's where this $1,600 balance is coming from. Have filed November, and let's say we want to be ahead of time and file in December. Go ahead and click on our File Now button to file for December. So now we're in our sales tax return. Again, similar to our registration, we tried to take it through bite-sized portions, step by step, only asking the information that we need, not making you put in too much information when you file your return. So our first step specifically for our sales tax return is we just want to make sure, double check, these are the license numbers that you're going to be filing for. So 25 ending in 361 is the license number that you're going to be filing for. Assuming that's correct, we click on Next. Then we give you an option to upload a file for sales tax. Again, it should be fairly similar to this from OBG. We didn't make a whole lot of changes. What this is for is if you have a system that automatically creates a layout that we've prescribed for a sales tax return, what this does is this doesn't make you input all 90 counties and input those on your return. It's very annoying to input 90 separate counties. We are aware of that, so we do give you an option to upload a file if you have it. For our purposes for the demo today, we're not going to be inputting 90 counties. I'm sure nobody wants to watch me type in 90 different counties. So we'll just click no. We only have a few that we're going to do here, and click next. So we can see here, we did pre-populate a county. The reason that we pre-populated Franklin here, if you remember, we had a November return on file. For November, Franklin County is the county that we filed for. So we pre-populate on your sales tax return whatever counties you had on your previous sales tax return. Again, you'll notice a trend. We're trying to make this as easy as possible. We don't want to make this any harder for you than necessary. But to file our sales tax return, let's say I had $100,000 of sales. I'm sure you all have nice even numbers like that too when you're filing your returns. Now, we do actually make you input your tax liability, even though we give you a tax rate here. Again, that's just in case you actually over-withheld on your sales tax. For purpose of the demo, let's say I didn't over-withhold. I withheld the exact proper amount of tax. Input that there. However, I did actually make some sales to Adams County this month. So to do that, what we can do under that county name right here, although this is a blank field, if you actually click on this blank field here, we do actually give you a drop-down pop-up here. And in this drop-down or pop-up, we actually list all different counties. So you can either click on a county or just go ahead and start typing. Basic filter like you would see in any other website or any other word processing. Type in Fair, and we can see Fairfield County. Click on Fairfield County, and our new road with Fairfield County is now added. And we get the option to add taxable sales and tax liability here as well. Let's say for some reason I had $100,000 of sales withheld in Fairfield as well. And I did over withhold for Fairfield though for $7,500. For some reason I had even amounts. I'm sure that that's really going to happen, but for purpose of the demo, it's good enough. Now, assuming that's good, move on to our next page. And then we're just asking you what your total sales were. Because now we have your basic county information. We just need to make sure that your total sales line up. So, say I have $200,000 of total sales. Nothing was exempt though. I had $0 exempt, and I didn't pay anything to the clerk of courts. So we'll go ahead and click on no for that. Move on to our next page, and we give you an option to make an accelerated payment with your return. Now, this won't always be here. The only times that we will actually offer the accelerated payment is in the scenario where you're filing a timely return. Since we're filing a timely return, we offer you the option. But I'm not going to make one for right now. Our standard review, again, double check everything before you submit it. Assuming everything is correct, move on to our payment options. For our payment options, you can see we offer electronic check, credit/debit card, which will go towards our third-party provider of ACI, or I can just pay later. But for right now, let's go ahead and select electronic check. You can see we pre-populate the amount for you. Again, quick and easy as possible. Notice a trend. We do actually let you future date your payment up until the due date of the return. That is not a problem with us. We actually encourage you to do whatever is easier for you. We'd rather get the money and get it scheduled than have you remember at a later time. And go ahead, input a routing number, an account number, which is a very real account number, bank account type, and then we give you this option here on the bottom, which I did want to point out here. So save for future use. Unfortunately, on OBG, as you remember, OBG had a wallet feature, which did allow you to save all of your banking information. Unfortunately, we were not able to migrate any of that over towards OH Tax, and all of that information will have to be re-input. However, on the bright side, we did actually hear some feedback from some preparers in some firms that they actually couldn't use the OBG wallet feature because all of the bank account information on OBG were actually stored on the web logon or the OHID level, meaning that the companies were intermatched. On OH Tax, that is actually not a thing. Since I'm actually saving this future bank account, this bank account will only be able to use for example company going forward. If I try to use this bank account for any other company, so for example, the file only LLC, you will not be able to do that. It only saves for a company level basis. So hopefully that helps with some security and allows some firms who weren't able to use this feature before to use it now. But bank information is input, give you a basic perjury statement, confirm everything. Again, you are filing a return, so this is still important. Assuming everything is correct, file your return. We tried to leave no doubt. Click file my return, and the return is submitted to us. You can see we normally process it as soon as possible within 2 days. But return is now filed. And I do want to point out here, if we go back towards our view returns and period balances, we can actually see under our period balances here, we do have a balance of $0. Again, although we future dated that payment, if you can remember, out to the 15th of January, we do actually include your pending payment that you had in your balance here. So you're not going to accidentally overpay twice. If the balance shows 0, we're at least expecting a payment on it. And that is everything for filing and paying. Now what we want to do is we're going to focus on some new features that are available in OH Tax. We're actually pretty excited about these. We've heard some feedback, some requests. These are things that we're actually looking forward and pretty excited to share with you. First one being, let me navigate down here towards our sales tax panel and click on that more ... Under our more ... our third panel here, request abatement. For any of you who have had to request an abatement before December, you'll know that our process will say left a little bit to be desired. You needed to submit a request to us, and then we needed to process it, and that process could take months, if not weeks, if not years. It took a long time, unfortunately. But with OH Tax eServices, 1, you can request it online. You don't need to send us anything. And 2, it's instant. So if you click on request a penalty abatement, now we give you some eligibility requirements. Just because we're allowing you to request the abatement doesn't necessarily mean we're going to grant you an abatement. We'll do what we can and process them through our system, but giving you some reasons why we might not be able to give anything. Click submit, and your abatement's processed. It's done. You will get it almost real time. Not necessarily real time. We do have to process it a little bit, but should be done within 10 minutes. You will have your abatement request. That's it. 3 clicks, abatement request done. We're actually really excited about this, and we're hoping that that makes a big impact for you and makes it easier for you guys requesting abatements. Other things that we wanted to point out, under our additional services here, if we click on respond to a letter or notice, we actually make it really easy to respond to a letter or notice. Again, prior to go live with Release 2, if you wanted to respond to a letter, you had to go to ONRS, you had to input a fax ID, you had to upload documents. It was kind of a nightmare. Now, what you can see here is, this assessment notice that you sent to us, I just don't think it's right. I think you guys assessed me in error. Well, you click on that. Right here, you can see on the top, you're instantly filing an appeal because this is in an appealable status. They are letting you file an appeal with just clicking on that. You go through this, it's filed. Don't even necessarily need to upload anything. Don't need to go to any third parties. Don't need to input a fax number for some reason. Quick and easy. Theme, guys, theme. And that is everything that I wanted to show you logged in, but that is not everything. As Jonathan had mentioned in some of his slides, we are now offering some guest services. So guest services mean we offer you the ability to do some things without logging in. So that means 1, without logging into OBG, that means you do not have to necessarily create an OHID. You do not need to request access to the company on OBG. You don't need that request access link that we went over for access request and access approval, getting the appropriate permissions. You don't need to do any of that. So CPA is the client comes in for you and says, hey, Ohio Department of Taxation sent me this bill. I just want to pay it. Well, you don't need to go to OBG, you are more than welcome to. We have those features that we showed. If you just want to pay it, click Make a Business Payment. Or if it's specifically a bill or assessment, you can click Pay a Bill or Assessment, and you can do it without logging in. So taxpayers trying to give us money, we're trying to take the money. Again, quick and easy. Other non-logged in functions or guest functions is submit a response. Similar to what we just saw with, hey, I have this assessment. I don't think it's right. You click on the submit response, input your letter ID, the response is submitted, no accounts necessary, no permissions are necessary. And last but not least, we have an improvement towards our digital assessment, which we are calling Pilot. We did launch Pilot with Release 1 last year. However, we heard some feedback. Pilot got a little confused, didn't always respond as well as we would have hoped. So we did actually revamp it. We took a look, rewrote some of our responses Pilot gave, and we tried to change it so that our menu options were a little bit better and made it so if you had a question specifically towards individual income, you can click this link. We give you a list of different options. The Pilot will respond with individual income. Or, most importantly, we are actually offering a live chat feature. So while Pilot is a digital assistant and not a real person, it's a bot, we do actually offer now the ability to live chat with a real agent, real time, through Pilot. So if you ever called in before and the phone queue times were too late, come to OH Tax. We offer this either logged into your account or as a guest function. You can go navigate to it, just type in chat, and you will be able to get navigated towards a live chat, a live agent who will be able to assist you and help with your problems directly through our application. Again, you will still need to meet disclosure. We do still safeguard your information. It is still our highest priority. But again, quick and easy. You don't need to call in. You don't need to email us. Another way to contact us. So hopefully we can help you resolve any tax-related questions. And with that, that is everything that we have time for and everything that we were planning to show you for our eServices platform.
My name is Katina Colbell. I am a tax examiner specialist with employment tax. I've been with the department for about 9 years. And today I'm going to go over the employment tax annual filing updates. So the information provided in the presentation is given in general guidance only and does not constitute legal or tax advice. Some of the things that we are going to be going over today is withholding updates, meaning for the end of the year, W-2, 1099 upload submission options and format requirements. New system, OH Tax eServices, and where you'll locate your employer withholding information on that site. Taxation website design, and how to easily navigate directly to the employment tax information from the new design. Our social media presence, we'll go over what social media we are on and how you can locate us. Resources and contact information for employment tax. So we're going to get started with withholding updates for 2025. As you can see, school district, there weren't a whole lot of changes coming into 2025. There were no new school district rates introduced. We do have two that did expire in 2024, which is the Alexander and Clinton Massey local school districts. Those both expired, so you will no longer need to withhold those two school districts for 2025. Two rate changes that took place was Danville Local School District. They did increase to 1.75%, whereas Mount Gilead School District, they were decreased to 0.75%. There were 18 school district renewals. A little bit about the school district. As far as when you need to withhold, it is based on the home address and not the work location. And it is a separate tax from city or municipal tax. what happens is whenever you have a new employee or even a current employee, if they move, they should fill out the IT-4, which will give you, they'll provide you with the school district number on that. You can also research the employee's address by going to the Finder. In the Finder, you can locate school district tax rates, whether it is a taxing school district or not, based off of the home address. So those are the resources out there available to research more about the school district, if it is a taxing school district or not. Also, the new tax tables, they started in July 1st of 2024, and they're still going to be effective for 2025. Those new tables did include the income tax rate reductions from House Bill 33. And as you can see here on the slide, we do have previous tax tables as well as the 2025 withholding resources. So on our website, if you go to tax.ohio.gov/employer, you'll be able to locate all of these resources, including the Ohio employer and school district withholding guidelines, school district rates, due dates, and payment schedules are all available. Filing season reminder, since the deadline is coming due, the annual reconciliations for employment tax, which would be the IT 941 for employer withholding and the SD 141, those are both due on January 31st, the end of this month. And per the OAC code 5703-9-19, that code did go in effect January 1st of 2015. Those forms are required to be electronically submitted, as the 501 and 101s are as well. Filing frequency job, we did not run that job at the end of last year due to the system conversion. So all filing frequencies will remain the same in 25 as they were in 2024. So there was no new letters or anything going out concerning the filing frequencies. And for partial weekly filers that are used to doing that IT 942, that was discontinued and it was effective for the tax year 2024. So you're not going to see that option of filing the quarterly, the fourth quarter annual 942 anywhere on your dashboard. So you will be required to file the IT 941 instead to file your annual reconciliation. And W-2 1099 information, this is what I'm really excited about because I deal with this section daily. So just like the reconciliations are due on January 31st, all income statement submissions are also due on January 31st. And by income statements, I'm referring to any W-2s or 1099s. Those file submissions are due January 31st. And for the tax year 2024, there are record layout changes that that took place from the IRS. The RO record, or the employee optional record, and the RU total optional record were updated and added to box 12 of the W-2 code 2, which is an income from exclusion of Medicaid waiver payments. There are certain steps in the state filing requirements that you'll want to pay close attention to when you look at the specifications, because it will require some information put in that file as well. The Ohio law does require all employers and retirement system payers to electronically file returns and submit income statements, meaning the W-2 and 1099-Rs, to the department per the ORC and OAC codes listed on your screen. I'm happy to report that more than 99.75% of employer withholding taxpayers do currently file electronically, and we really appreciate that because it does make our job a little bit easier when you do so. So thank you for doing that. Accepted file types to submit your income statements. The W-2s, you can submit them in a text file, which the department does follow the EFW2 layout required by the Social Security Administration. However, we do have certain modifications that are specific to Ohio, as outlined in our EFW2 specifications that are located on our website. The W-2s can also be submitted through a CSV file or the simplified W-2 upload format. And this is a format that the department created to assist smaller businesses with compliance of our W-2 filing requirements. This method does involve manual entry of the W-2 information onto a spreadsheet that, once you have all your information on there, you can click a button, a simple button that says convert your information basically to a CSV file, and you can upload that. The spreadsheet is located on tax.ohio.gov/W2 upload. This third option is new with the rollout of OVTA Tax eServices, and I'm super excited about this because since the requirement to the threshold to submit those W-2 files and 1099s have been reduced, we've been asked for a few years now to create an easier way for taxpayers to, for those companies to submit their W-2s. So with this new rollout, we do have the manual entry submission, where companies can input the W-2 information directly onto OVTA Tax eServices, and it'll upload the information for you there. Similar to the spreadsheet, except for the CSV format, you would input everything on a spreadsheet, save it to your computer, upload that, versus just manually entering your W-2 information and submitting. 1099 text files, those are all submitted as a text file. No other version exists. The manual entry submissions, they only apply for the W-2s and not the 1099s. The Ohio Department of Taxation does follow the 1099 layout required by the IRS in publication 2012. And W-2 and 1099 information cannot be combined into one text file. Same with different types of 1099s that you can upload. The 1099-R, the NEC, or the miscellaneous, those all have to be submitted in separate files. And again, for W-2, 1099 specifications, tutorials, and frequently asked questions, you can visit the tax.ohio.gov/W2 upload to get right to our W-2 1099 content page. Now, it's going to be a little different submitting your files or submitting or entering those annual wage statements. You will now do that through OVTA Tax eServices. All annual income statements will now be uploaded through the OVTA Tax eServices. Upload options are located on the income statement upload panel as shown on the left-hand side. For text or CSV files, you would want to select the Upload Income Statement option. This will let you pull that file from your computer and upload it that way. Or to manually enter the W-2s, you would want to select the Enter Annual Wage Statement option. And I'm going to demonstrate or give steps for how to do so to use the new option. What's great about being into OVTA Tax eServices, instead of getting a file like last year, you would upload your file. If there was errors, we would email you. You'd have to go back in the system. With the new system, any file errors, you're going to know right away. As soon as you especially for the text files and CSV file, any errors within the file will be displayed and will be required to be corrected before the file can be uploaded. The descriptive error reason is provided, including line number and position placement of the error, so it's easily to detect where that error is, and you can go back and fix it. And then once those errors are corrected, you can upload the file and get your confirmation right away. Steps for submitting a manually submitting the W-2s. You will log into your gateway. You'll click the OH Tax eService transaction located under the Ohio Department of Taxation option there. A splash page will appear. There's two hyperlinks, OH Tax eService hyperlinks. You can click either one of those. It will redirect you to eService dashboard. Once you're on your eServices, your OH Tax eServices, you'll access the employer withholding panel on the dashboard. You'll click the More option hyperlink from the account panel. Now, this slide we have done just recently, within days, we have made an improvement because we want the most user-friendly options here for you to select. We did add the file upload for submitting the text file or the CSV file. That is now linked directly on that account panel. But for manual entry, you will still select the More option. And from the More option, the account service screen will display. You'll click Enter Annual Wage Statements hyperlink from the Income Upload panel. You'll select the tax year the wage statements are for from the drop-down box. As you can see, you can do prior years in the system as well. Once you've selected your year, you'll select Next. You complete all fields on the employer information window, which would be the employer federal EIN number, employer name, address, contact person, contact phone number, and email. Once you've done so, you'll select Next. The annual wage statement window will display. To add the W-2 information for the employee, you'll click Add a Record hyperlink listed there on the Employer Wage and Withholding Records panel. This will display the employee record window. You'll complete all required applicable fields on the Employee Wage and Withholding Record panel. So you'll see here, we do have three different lines for school districts. Believe it or not, some people will actually use even more of those. We added more of those for those instances where employees move throughout the year. They might live in two separate school districts, so you'll have up to 3 options to put that information in there. So once you've done so, you'll click the Add option or the Add button. And as you can see here, if there are any errors within the employee wage and withholding record, an error icon will appear at the beginning of the record as shown here. You'll want to click on the red circle error icon. It'll redirect you back to the record. All errors will be highlighted with a red asterisk. So as you can see here in this record, the employer withholding account number was left off. So once we input that and add the employer account number, you'll go to OK. And as you can see, that error code has been removed, and you're able to add your next record. So to add another W-2, you'll simply just click the Add a Record hyperlink again. And you're going to repeat these steps 6 through 8 until all issued W-2s have been added. Once all W-2s have been added, you'll select Next. And there is no limit that I'm aware of and as far as how many W-2s you could submit. With the CSV file, there's a $500 limit to how many records you can put in there. So once you click Next, your review panel will display. It will show all total employees, wages, Ohio tax withheld, and school district tax withheld totals. So you can see it's very similar to the IT3. If all information is correct, you will click the Submit option, the Submit button, and it'll take you out to the confirmation page. When you receive this, please know that your file was received. You're not going to get a separate email saying that it was successfully uploaded or corrected. When you have your confirmation page here, this is your notice that everything was submitted properly. So from the confirmation page, you can click a printable view by clicking the printable view button, or you can click OK and it will redirect you back to your account service page. So the file is now submitted. So we're going to move on to 1099 filing. The department now electronically accepts 1099-Rs, 1099 miscellaneous, and 1099 NEC, 1099-G files. Those are new. Miscellaneous, NECs, and G, that is all new. They can be electronically submitted. And again, they have to be on separate files. And the specifications for those tutorials and frequently asked questions, again, is at tax.ohio.gov/W2 upload. Some reminders on submitting the W-2 1099s. We are unable to accept PDF files that have been converted to a text or CSV file. The file will reject because it's just not in the correct format. You would want to refer back to the specifications. A reminder that the 4-digit school district code is required to be present on the W-2s. We would like the school district name and 4-digit code both listed, but if only the school district, if there's not enough space for both, the school district 4-digit code is more important to have listed. The full Social Security number is required to be present in the W-2 or 1099 files. However, employers can truncate the Social Security number on the W-2s that are issued directly to the employees. Questions concerning the W-2 1099 uploads can directly be submitted through the OVTA Tax eServices by using the Send a Message option. And as always, there is no paper IT3 that is required to be filed. When you submit your W-2 or 1099 file electronically, that creates the IT3 in our system for us, so there's no need to send anything separately. The new system, OVTA Tax eServices, for an employer withholding. You probably have noticed so far that employer withholding transactions are no longer on your gateway dashboard. You would need to select the click on the OVTA Tax eServices hyperlink located under the Ohio Department of Taxation option. And when that splash page appears, you will go ahead and click one of the two hyperlinks to get redirected to OVTA Tax eServices. Now, the gateway, you're still going to use the gateway a little bit for initial company registrations or the user access request. And you want to use the history in the gateway to research any filings that were done directly in the gateway. Those are not passed over to the new eServices system. So you would still use the history for any previous returns filed prior to us converting to a new system. Things that are new, you probably already noticed this, that no IT 501 or SD 101 is able to be filed without payment. So that's really not new as far as requiring electronic payment. That did go in effect January 1st of 2015, and that is located in the OAC code 5703-7-19. Prior, the department did provide some flexibility to allow non-electronic payments up until now, but going forward, you will need to make your payment whenever you file the 501 or the 101, the school district 101 return. Having said that, there is still an option to defer payments on the 501s or the 101s. When you submit those forms, you can defer the payment up to the due date, if that helps. And also a reminder, make sure you're selecting file and pay 501 or 101 option when trying to submit your monthly, quarterly, or partial weekly returns. I know there is a make a payment option out there, but that's really only used for assessment payments, or if maybe a payment was rejected and now you have to go back in and make another payment. Stored payments did not pass over from the gateway. However, you can store it in eServices. Once you've entered a new return for the first time, you do have the option when you're making your payment to store that information. Another new thing with eServices, all new withholding accounts that are registered for after conversion, after that December 9th date, will now have a 55 account number. They will start with 55. So for the payroll providers, you may need to update your instructions or guidance because there are a new account number that's going to be available. Pilot, you're going to notice pretty much everywhere you go, if it's on our website or eServices, there is a red bird in the corner somewhere. That is a virtual assistant tool, and it assists with finding answers and information. It's just a quick tool to help you navigate a little bit better and maybe find some answers. Many things that previously that required a phone call or a form to be submitted or a written request can now be easily done through eServices, such as manage addresses, update legal name, request refunds, request penalty abatements, even tax transcripts. You can send messages through there. There is an option to update the FEIN. And just to emphasize, that option is really used whenever there is maybe an error keying in the federal EIN number for the first time. If a company does receive a new federal EIN number from the IRS, you would be required to register for a new employer withholding account at that time. But if it's just an error with when you input the information, you can submit that request with a copy of your IRS SS4 confirmation letter, and we can get that updated for you. So it'll save a lot of time doing a lot of requests through eServices. There is an option out there you might have seen, filing frequency change. It's not on this slide, but there is an option out there. We will still go through our guidelines as far as if those filing frequencies can be approved or denied, but you will get a letter either way letting you know if the filing frequency is changing. And there are resources on eServices under additional resources. If you click on the additional services, there is a resource panel that you can click on that will take you directly to our tutorials, our PDF, help aids, and so on. Taxation's redesign. An easy way to get to the employment tax information. You can easily type in tax.ohio.gov/employer or tax.ohio.gov/W2 upload to get directly to our page. And you can view the employer withholding due dates, tables, guidelines, instructions, and so on. Resources that were previously mentioned, as you can see here on this slide, are also available. and contact information is listed as well for employer withholding. And thank you very much for taking your time with us today, and have a good afternoon.
All right. Hello. My name is Keith Nichols. I work for the Business Tax Division at the Ohio Department of Taxation, and more specifically with the sales tax. All right, and a little legal disclaimer we have here. The information provided in this presentation is given for general guidance only and does not constitute legal or tax advice. All right, so today we're going to talk about some of the more common errors that we see when filing for sales tax. To start out with a little baseline information about our sales tax, it was first enacted in 1935 here in Ohio, and it is considered a trust tax. What that means is that basically that money never truly belongs to the business. You're merely collecting it and remitting it on behalf of the customers. And as we go through this presentation, we're going to talk about some of the common errors that we see for all filing types, and then we'll drill down into the more specific types. We have electronic filers, we have telefilers, and we have paper filers. And then once we talk about the common errors, we'll talk about what some of the next steps may be past filing for sales tax. And then we'll have some good resources if you have additional questions beyond this presentation. Okay, so first we're going to talk about some of our more common errors that we see for all filing types. All right, and then here back in December, we did roll out our new eServices system. And basically that eServices, it's going to look a little bit different than what you're used to, but we're still going to ask for all the same information for the UST1 when you're filing for that sales tax. So we'll still ask for gross sales, exempt sales, taxable sales by county. So it's still going to be all the same information. It's just going to look a little bit different for you. And then to kind of switch gears and to start talking about some of the errors that we're going to see. A lot of times what we see is maybe when you file for your sales tax, your taxable sales and your tax liability may not kind of line up with each other. So I know a lot of times what we do see is sometimes people put taxable sales equal to tax liability. Just make sure you're kind of checking your math on all that, because you shouldn't really be collecting 100% sales tax. So just make sure you're inputting the correct numbers for your taxable sales and your tax liability. Just keep in mind the tax liability is going to be the sales tax that you're collecting on those taxable sales. And then a little bit further on down that UST1, you're going to see the exempt line. And that's where we see a few more errors that you may see. That exempt line is basically just for non-taxable sales. So some of the major exemptions that we see that should be there is if you have maybe food items to go. If you're selling those items, those would be on that exempt line. If you have maybe a customer has presented you with an exemption certificate, that would be our STECU or B. So if they're claiming that sales tax exemption, you would want to make sure you put those sales on that exempt line. And we also had our sales tax holiday. That was at the end of August and the beginning of July. The end of July and the beginning of August. So if you have any of those sales, especially if you're a semi-annual filer, that'll be on this next filing that you're doing. So just make sure any of those sales tax holiday sales are going to go in that exempt line. Otherwise, you'll get charged for the sales tax for those sales. And then a little bit further down the list there, we do have our clerk of courts line on that UST1. We do see a lot of errors on this. That clerk of courts line, that's essentially just for car dealerships. They report all of their sales to the clerk of courts. So unless you're submitting your sales tax directly to the clerk of courts, for most filers, that line is just going to be a 0. And then we'll talk a little bit about our accelerated payments here. This is a little bit more of a complicated issue on the UST1. Basically, if you're not required to make the accelerated payments, you can just leave that line as 0, and that's okay. However, if you are required to make accelerated payments, if your account is required to make those accelerated payments, we do recommend that you estimate about 3/4 of your sales tax liability for the following period to be paid on that accelerated payment line. line. We do have a great information release out there. If you go to tax.ohio.gov and go to the very bottom of that page, you'll see a link for information releases, and then you can sort by sales tax, and then the very first one is our accelerated payments information release. So if you're having any questions about the baseline accelerated payments you should be making, that's a great information release to kind of check out there. So another error that we see sometimes with the accelerated payment is if you're trying to file past the deadline. If you're trying to file past the 23rd of the month, it will not allow you to make those accelerated payments. So basically at that point, what you want to do is you want to finish filing for that month. And basically at that point, you'll only be paying whatever is left for that period. And then at that point, you kind of have a couple options for as far as the accelerated payment. Since you're already filing late, you may already be into the next filing period. If you're already into that next filing period, you can go ahead and just fill out that UST1. You'll pay that in full. And then at that point, you'll start making the accelerated payments for then the next period after that. And then another option, maybe you're not ready to make that next filing period, UST1, or maybe you're just getting really antsy and you really want to make that accelerated payment and it's past the due date. So what you can do at that point, you can make a payment only onto that next period. That way you do have that accelerated payment, and then when you go to file for that period, you'll see the credit for that as well. And then another kind of issue that does pop up from time to time with our accelerated payments. So say maybe you've estimated that 3/4 of what you think you're going to have, but then when you go to actually file for that sales tax, maybe you've estimated too much. So at that point, what you want to do, you want to make sure that any leftover credit that you have for that period, you want to carry that forward on the accelerated payment line to the next month. So even if that extra payment or that extra credit that you may have on there may be too much or more than what you're thinking for the following period, you'll still want to carry forward all that accelerated payment, all of that credit on that accelerated payment line. That way it gets put onto that next period, and then you can use up the credit at that point. Otherwise, what happens is it kind of gets left on that prior month. And if for whatever reason that happens, that's not a big deal. You can always give our agents a call, and we can look into moving that credit for you. That number to reach our agents is 1-888-405-4039. I'm going to kind of switch gears a little bit from filing into registration. So if you're registering for a county vendor's license, sometimes we see people think they need to do that annually. It's just a one-time registration. So there's a one-time $25 payment. And at that point, that registration, that vendor's license is good indefinitely. You'll just want to make sure that you keep filing on that license. And that brings me to my next point. Say there's a period in which you don't have any sales. You will still want to make sure you file that UST1. I do have this bolded because this is probably the single biggest issue that we do see out of this whole presentation. This is probably the biggest issue where if you don't have any sales, we do still require that UST1 to be filed. And I can promise you that $0 filing will be the easiest UST1 you'll ever have to do. All right. And then talk a little bit more about our common errors. We do see sometimes errors with our amendments. So basically your amendment is going to replace the original filing. So sometimes when people do that amendment, they think, oh, I realize I forgot to report this one sale. They'll just try to do an amendment just for that one sale. Unfortunately, we want the entire month. So you'll redo the entire period. So you'll put your full figures in there for your full gross sales and taxable sales. So you'll redo the entire form as if you were filing it for the first time, basically. And at that point, when you get to the end of that, you'll see the credit for the amount that you already paid. So there's a couple things here. If you are increasing that tax liability in that instance, you would just pay the difference at that point. Like I say, you'll see the credit for the amount you already paid, and then you'll just pay the difference. However, you may be amending it to a lower tax liability. So if you're amending it down to a lower tax liability, at that point, you'll want to look into a refund. We do not automatically offer refunds for amendments. So there's a couple options there. You can request that refund on eServices. Or you can send in a STAR form. That STAR form can be found at our website. It's tax.ohio.gov. And look in the upper right-hand corner, there's a link for forms. And then you can just search for STAR. And that stands for sales tax application for refund. And when you search for STAR, there'll be two options. The first one is the actual application itself, and then the second option will be our STAR C. And basically that STAR C kind of offers you ideas of what you may want to include, because we will need some basically some documentation as to why you amended it lower than what you originally reported. So that STAR C form gives you some ideas as to what kind of documentation you'll want to include with that. And then to talk a little bit about our deadlines, we do have our monthly deadlines. Those are the 23rd of the following month. So say you're trying to file for January's sales tax, you'll report that by February 23rd. February's sales tax, you'll report by March 23rd, and so forth. Just keep that 23rd date in mind when you're filing. And then we also have semi-annual filers. We do have two deadlines for them. We have the July 23rd deadline and the January 23rd deadline. So any of your sales from January 1st through June 30th, you report by July 23rd. And then any of your sales from July 1st through December 31st, you want to make sure you're reporting that by January 23rd. And then keep in mind, too, for those semi-annual filers, we did roll out our new eServices last month. So this semi-annual filing that you'll be doing for the second half of 2024, that'll be done on this new service, the new eServices. So I would recommend that you go ahead and get in there maybe a few days earlier. Maybe you're usually the kind of person that waits to the last moment. We do recommend that you maybe go in there a few days early, just kind of acclimate yourself with that new system. Just make sure you are able to get in there and kind of understand everything. If you do have any issues or any questions at all, don't hesitate to give our agents a call. They can certainly help you. And then maybe you're kind of wondering, what's the difference between a monthly filer and a semi-annual filer? Basically, we have a $200 threshold. So if you're consistently filing over a $200 average of sales tax every month, you're going to be a monthly filer. If you're consistently filing under that $200 threshold of average sales tax remitted each month, you can be put on that semi-annual filing frequency. And if for whatever reason you find yourself as a monthly filer and you find yourself consistently under that $200 threshold, you can either give our agents a call and we can look at maybe possibly putting you on that semi-annual deadline, or you can ask that on that eServices. That is a new web request that we do have on there. You can request to be a semi-annual as well, and then an agent will review that request also. So one of the big reasons I'm mentioning the deadlines here is because we do offer a 0.75% discount if you file timely. So basically what that means is as long as you're filing your UST1 and paying it in full, we do offer that 0.75% discount. So just make sure you are, like I say, paying that in full and filing that UST1 both to be able to take advantage of that discount. And then new, what we have here for our second quarter, starting in April 1st of 2025 here, we do have an increase for our CODA regions. So if you're in Union County, Fairfield County, Licking County, or Delaware County, you want to pay special attention because we do have CODA regions and non-CODA regions for those counties. And basically, if you're in the CODA region, the sales tax rate will be going up by 0.5%. If you're in the non-CODA region, the sales tax will not be going up at all. It will remain the same. And then important to note, Franklin County is considered all of the county as a CODA region. So all of Franklin County will be raised 0.5% here on April 1st. And if you're having any questions as to whether you may or may not be in that CODA region, you can take a visit to our website. It's tax.ohio.gov. You go to the very bottom of that page and you can click on the Finder. And then from there, you'll click on Sales and Use Tax, and you're able to input your address. And it'll tell you if you're in that CODA or non-CODA region, and it'll even tell you the most current sales tax rate. Okay, now we're going to drill down a little bit more into specific filing types. So we're going to talk about some of our electronic filing errors that we see commonly. All right, so we do have our return payments. We have our payment-only options. We have our return payment and our account payment are going to be the two most popular. Our return payment is what we've traditionally had in our old system, the Ohio Business Gateway. Basically, it's the return payment you're paying on a specific period. So say maybe you filed for November, but you never ended up paying it. You can make that specific return payment directly to November. New, what we have in eServices is our account payment. So account payments are useful. Maybe you have more than one period that you're paying on. Maybe you got kind of behind and maybe there's 3 different periods in which you need to remit payment for. In our old system, you would have had to make 3 separate payments for 3 separate months. In our new system, you can do what's called the account payment. And basically that will self-allocate to whatever whatever periods need that money. But you will want to make sure that you're being careful. If you are making an account payment, it does self-allocate. So if you have prior debt or maybe older amounts that are still due, it may pay those off before what you're trying to pay off. So if you do have older debt and you're trying to pay on a specific period, go ahead and use that return payment. That way you can pay on that specific period that you're trying to pay on. And again, these are payment-only options, so you will still want to make sure that you are filing that UST1. And that's going to be the easiest way to pay, is just at the end of the UST1. You can pay directly right when you file that. That's going to be the easiest way to pay, but like I say again, these are payment-only options. So maybe you've already filed that UST1 and you need to go ahead and make a payment. You can use either that return or the account payment option. And then especially, I'd say for CPAs and third-party filers, I would say just check with your clients every so often just to make sure that you do have the most up-to-date bank information. We do see sometimes payments fail. Maybe they've gone to a new bank, or maybe they've gotten a new account with their same bank. Just kind of make sure you're checking in with your clients every so often, just to make sure that you do have the most up-to-date banking information. Okay, to continue on about some of our electronic filing errors, I will say a great resource we do have is our phone agents. You can reach them at 1-888-405-4039. And what they can do is, say maybe you're having an issue and you just can't figure your way through that, give our agents a call and they'll ask you for a support ID that can be found on your screen, and they'll be able to do a snapshot. That way they'll be able to see what you're looking at, and then maybe they can kind of help you. They can kind of see what your error is or what page you may be stuck on, and they'll be able to troubleshoot with you and get you past that. And another new thing that we do have with our eServices, from now on, when you create a new county vendor's license, we'll put you on a combined filing schedule. So what that means is that, say you've already have your first location and then you maybe open up a second or third or so on, those will all be one combined UST1s that you'll be filing now. Whereas in the past, you would have had to file a UST1 for each of your locations or request to be on that combined account. Now we're automatically putting you on that combined account. It is important to note that that is only for county vendors licenses. So if you have a transient, an out-of-state, or a use tax, those still will need to be filed separately. The combined account is basically a combined UST1 filing just for the county vendors licenses. And it is important to note also that we do still require there to be a vendor's license, a county vendor's license for each physical location that you have. So even though you're on that combined filing system, you'll still want to make sure that you do have a county vendor's license for each location. And then another error that we do kind of see from time to time, people may fax or email in just a spreadsheet instead of their UST1. Unfortunately, we're not able to accept those. We do need that UST1 filled out. However, we do have, if you're on that UST1 on eServices, it will ask you if you have an upload. If you hit yes on there, it'll take you to a page that'll have a template for you. And basically, you can download and use that template to be able to fill out the UST1. So you'll fill out your Excel template that we've provided. And then once you've got that filled out, you can upload that to your UST1. So it's not in place of that UST1, it's just kind of helping you fill out the UST1. And then you'll upload it there, then continue on with the form. Okay. And then this is something that is not changing in our system. So in the past, this is basically the same process that you'll go through. Say maybe you have a new client that you're taking on, or maybe you have a new employee at your firm and they need to request access to the client. Either way, whatever the issue is that you may want to request access to the new business, you'll still do that at gateway.ohio.gov. Like I say, that process has not changed. So what you'll do, you'll go in there. Once you get logged in, you'll click on the little button that says Request Business Access. And from there, you'll input the EIN for the business, either the EIN or the Social Security number, whichever they're using, and request your appropriate level of access. And at that point, the current filing administrator will have to approve your access. A lot of times what happens is maybe that filing administrator has retired, quit, maybe it was an old CPA, whatever the issue may be. If the previous filing administrator is not able to approve your access, at that point we'll ask you to send in a filing administrator letter. And I've included some of the ideas of what you'll want to include on that letter. So you'll want to make sure it's on company letterhead. You'll have the FEIN or the Social Security number of the company that you're attempting to gain access to. You'll also include the person's name as well as their email and username of the person that's trying to gain that access. You'll have a brief explanation, and then you'll want to make sure that it is signed by either an owner or an officer of the company you're attempting to gain access to. Make sure there's a signature along with their title listed. And you can upload that right there on that gateway. Up in the upper right-hand corner, there's a question mark, and you can click Create a Case, and you can submit that letter right there. And then just keep in mind that email that is associated with that account. Just make sure you're kind of checking on that. They will email you one way or the other. If they do need additional information from you, you'll get an email, or if you are approved. Either way, you will get that email. So just make sure you're kind of paying attention to your email that you have on there. Okay, now we'll kind of talk a little bit more specifically with telefile errors. So our telefile line is 1-800-697-0440. And one of the more common errors that we see, or at least one of the more common calls that we get, are people that are kind of struggling with the date. It is very specific. It wants an 8-digit format for that date. So say you're filing for maybe June of 2024. At that point, you would put in the last day of the month. So you would put in 06302024. So just make sure you are using that 4-digit year, and that if it's one of the first 9 months, just make sure you do have that leading 0 in there. So as long as it's in that 8-digit format, you should be good to go with the date. And another call that we do get quite often with the telefiling. So say you've gone through and input all your sales numbers. You've gotten your confirmation number that you've got that filed, and now it's asking you for the payment information. And you're kind of fumbling around looking for maybe your account number, your routing number, whatever it may be. And in the meantime, that telefile line may have cut you off. So that's okay. As long as you've gotten that confirmation number that you did file that USD one, you can call that number back, that same telefile line. And at that point, you won't have to re-input all your sales numbers. What you can do is just make a payment only. There's an option to make that payment only. It'll ask you again for your vendor's license and TIN, your 2-digit TIN, and then the period that you're paying on. At that point, you can make that payment only, and then you'll receive another confirmation number for that payment. So always make sure if you are telefiling, you'll get 2 confirmation numbers, one for the USD one, and then the other one for your payment. And then kind of a perk of the telefile. A lot of times if you have maybe you're purchasing a liquor permit from another vendor, another business owner, until that liquor permit is fully transferred over, you will not be allowed to file on your vendor's license. You'll still need to file on the old vendor's license until that liquor permit has been fully transferred. So a telefile is a great option for that. That way you don't have to request access to their business. They don't have to grant you access to their business. You can just file right there on that telefile. All you'll need is their vendor's license number and their 2-digit tax identification number. And if they don't know their TIN, they can give our phone agents a call, and then they'll be able to let the sellers of that liquor permit know what their 2-digit TIN is. And something to keep in mind with our telefiling, it is only for county vendor's licenses only, and it is only for the county in which your vendor's license is registered. So if you have sales outside of your county, or if maybe you're a transient license or use or out of state, you will not be able to telefile. You'll still want to get on that eServices and file on there. All right, and now we'll talk a little bit about our paper filing errors. So first off, just to mention that we do have electronic filing is required for the state of Ohio. However, we do still have some taxpayers that are opted out. So if you are opted out and able to make those paper filings, we do have some common errors that we see there. I have provided here the UST one that you'll be filing out. The very bottom on the left-hand side on the bottom, you'll see that's the second page. That's probably the biggest error that we see is that page just kind of gets skipped and doesn't get filled out. We do require that county schedule to be filled out. Basically, a portion of the sales tax gets allocated to each county in which those sales were made. So we need to know what county to allocate those sales to. So just make sure you are filling that second page out. It is required. And then if you are sending in a paper check, just make sure on that memo line of your check, you're going to want to make sure you're putting in the account number as well as the period that you're filing on. So as long as you have that account number and the period in there, that way it'll get allocated to the correct account and the correct period that you're trying to file for or trying to pay on. And then something a little bit more specific to kind of CPAs and third parties that we do see. If you've already submitted your UST1 electronically, but then maybe for whatever reason you're trying to send in a paper copy, we don't need a duplicate UST1 sent in with that check. All you'll need to do is just make sure you put that period and the account number on the memo line. As long as you, like I say, as long as you have that account number and period in that memo line, you'll be good. It'll get allocated to the proper account. And then we do ask that you don't submit any just random forms that you might find online. We do see that a lot. Unfortunately, a lot of them are not acceptable. If you do need a paper filing and you don't have one, a paper form, please give our agents a call and they can send out one for you. Like I say, a lot of the ones that are found online either aren't acceptable or maybe they're older and don't have the right information that you need to fill out. So like I say, just definitely give our agents a call. And another thing, just make sure you do have the correct account number if you are filing on that paper UST1, because that's basically all we're going to have to go on is what's written on that paper form. So just make sure that you do have the correct account number. And then I will mention too, our paper forms aren't meant to be taken in place of if you have an error from either e-filing on that eServices or doing the telefile. If you do encounter an error on there, a lot of times there is a reason for that error. So don't just file a paper error to try to get around that error. Definitely give our phone agents a call and they can kind of walk you through exactly what's going on and what the issue may be with the error that you're seeing. So some of our next steps that we may have, maybe you've accidentally closed out your account. If it's been within 6 months, you can give us a call. Our phone agents are available at 888-405-4039, and they can reactivate that. If it has been past that 6-month period, you will want to make sure you file for a new vendor's license, and then you can backdate that. And then on our eServices, we do have a few new things you can do there on eServices. You can close your account out. You can update your information. So if you have a new address, a new legal name, whatever it may be, you can update your information right on there. However, if you are moving locations, if you have a county vendor's license, you want to make sure that if you're just moving within the county, you can update your address there. However, if you're moving your address from one county to another and you have that county vendor's license, you want to make sure you close out your old license and open up a new license. And if you don't have access to eServices, you can go to our website, tax.ohio.gov, and fill out, it's called a business account update form. And same on that tax.ohio.gov. I would also recommend, if you go to the very bottom of the page, there's a link for tax alerts. And you can sign up just general alerts, kind of gives you information as to what the filing deadlines are and what else you may need. And then past beyond this presentation, if you do have additional questions, there's a great resource here, tax.ohio.gov. Go to the very bottom of that page. There's an FAQs and information releases link. You can also call our phone agents. They're available from 8 to 5, Monday through Friday at 888-405-4039. And we also have on our website, that tax.ohio.gov, up in the upper right-hand corner, there's a link for Contact Us. And then you can schedule a call back with us. Or if you go a little bit further down that page, there's an Email Us option. Or if you're in the Central Ohio region, we do have a welcome center at 4485 Northland Ridge Boulevard, Columbus, Ohio, 43229. And then we also have new on our eServices. We have Pilot, which is our virtual assistant. And you can chat with Pilot. And if the Pilot is not able to answer your questions, you can chat with a live agent. And I will also keep in mind, we do have most of our rules and regulations can be found at Ohio Revised Code 5739 and Ohio Administrative Code 5703-9. Okay, thank you for listening to the sales tax presentation.
Thank you once again for watching this recording of the Ohio Virtual Tax Academy. For more information and latest updates, please visit our website at tax.ohio.gov. Thank you and have a great day.